Chapter 66. Little guys, about 900 li away is Lan Tsong province. We should be able to meet them before midnight tonight. Sit tight, this old man is talking like a youngster. I haven't driven a carriage for a long time. Pa, go go go. Following the old man's shout, the 4 horses' hooves suddenly flew, and their speed suddenly increased by more than 2 times. The originally stable carriage also began to shake violently. Chen Hao and the other 2 hurriedly grasped the armrests, and their gazes looked at the old man driving the carriage. This old man was the expert Fang Yuan sent to pick them up. He looked to be in his 50s, with a kind face and a smile on his face. One look and you could tell he was a smooth and slick old man. There was no trace of elemental energy around him, but Chen Hao and the other 2 knew this old man was an expert of intent. Even Li Ran was respectful towards him. Originally, Li Ran had arranged for a coachman, but he was rejected by the old man and personally became the coachman. Why are you 3 little guys like a taciturn gourd? After the old man spoke, Chen Hao and the other 2 didn't have any response. It was as if the forthright old man couldn't stand this kind of oppressive feeling. He turned his head and looked at Chen Hao and the other 2, lecturing them, "This is not good. When you go out, you must learn to make friends with all the heroes in the world. One more friend means one more path. Especially you 3, you all came from Yunzhou, you must maintain this kind of relationship. When we reach the Royal New Show Hall, you can take care of each other. Otherwise, with your strength, you will all be bullied." The old man drove the carriage while talking to Chen Hao and the other 2. Royal New Show Hall? Bullied? This time, when the 3 heard the old man's words, they were slightly stunned. They were clearly shocked by the information contained in the old man's words. Moue naturally looked at Chen Hao, and even Helian Wuzi was no exception. Although she had conflicts with Chen Hao was the core of the 3 of them. There was no need to doubt this point. Before they set off, their patriarchs had instructed them to treat Chen Hao as their core and befriend Chen Hao. After all, they only had this opportunity because of Chen Hao. To put it bluntly, they were the result of Fang Yuan rewarding Cloud Continent because of Chen Hao. Of course, the most important reason was that Moue was a taciturn person. Helian Wuzi was a character who was as silent as a block of ice. Senior, what is the Royal New Show Hall? Aren't we going to the Will Guild? Chen Hao, the only one who seemed normal, coughed lightly and asked. You still don't know where you're going? The old man seemed a little surprised, but then he understood immediately and said, yes, your Yunzhou is just a small county. This time, you have the opportunity because President Fang personally gave you this opportunity. The Club of Intentions is only a management organization for our Zhenyuan kingdom, not an organization for cultivating talents. Oh, it seems that President Fang accepted you as his personal disciple, right? It's like this. Chen Hao replied. President Fang's personal disciples in the Royal New Show Hall, if not 100, there are at least 80. Anyone who joins the Royal New Show Hall is basically President Fang's personal disciple. Don't think that President Fang can watch over you and teach you every day. However, your physique with both will and martial arts is indeed quite rare. At least it has never appeared in our Zhenyuan kingdom. And your martial talent seems to be even higher, so it's not strange at all for President Fang to accept you as his personal disciple. The one who strikes first gains the advantage. Otherwise, President Fang's sworn enemy, also an old friend, might snatch you away from President Fang. Senior is overpraising me, Chen Hao said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Whether or not I'm overpraising you is still undetermined. It still depends on your future development, the old man said calmly. After a slight pause, he turned his head and glanced at Helian Wuzi and Moue, saying, the little girl's martial talent can also be considered quite good. In the Royal New Show Hall, you can at least be considered above average, but your family background is too poor. The cultivation conditions that your family originally provided for you are incomparable to those of the other disciples. After you enter the Royal New Show Hall, you should be able to perform even better. As for you, little guy, old man, to tell you the truth, don't be discouraged. Your aptitude is considered good in Yunzhou, but in the Royal New Show Hall, you should be at the bottom. President Fong chose you because he fancied the sword intent in your heart. You can only be considered as barely qualified to enter the new show hall. Your future achievements will depend on whether or not the sword intent in your heart can be awakened. To become a true swordsman, you are very strong. Swordsmen and bladesmen are existences above pure martial artists. Within the same realm, for example, between a sword emperor and a martial emperor, a sword emperor's battle strength is 3 times stronger than a martial emperor's. Ah, little guy, do your best? Swordsman. I will. I will definitely become a swordsman. Hearing the old man's words, Mo Yui tightly grasped the large sword in his hand. His eyes flashed with a trace of passion as he said in a deep voice. Yes, not bad, your spirit is praiseworthy. Senior, are we all going to enter the Royal New Show Hall? Chen Hao asked again. Don't call me senior, senior. Old man, emperor, rise. The emperor of the royal family, rise. The Royal New Show Hall's uncle guard occasionally takes on new members like you. Yes, this uncle has many nicknames. In the new show hall, I am very famous. When the time comes, you will naturally know. Every year at this time, it is the time for the top forces in the 37 provinces of our kingdom to select members of the new show hall. Our kingdom has a population of more than 1 billion, but only about 300 people are qualified to enter the Royal New Show Hall every year. On average, there are only 10 people per province. The Royal New Show Hall is a rather mysterious existence. It's not strange that a small county like your Yunzhou doesn't know about it. And the 3 of you are the lucky ones personally selected by President Fong. You will know about this very soon. Telling you now isn't a big deal. Huang Qi's words caused Chen Hao and the other 2 to be slightly shocked. In a kingdom with a population of more than 1 billion, only 300 people were qualified to enter the Royal New Show Hall every year. Even if the old, weak, women and children were excluded, the ratio was still 1 in 10,000. One could imagine how fierce the competition was. At the same time, Huang Qi's enthusiastic and casual words also made Chen Hao feel that this old man wasn't bragging. He was probably an awesome person in the entire Jinyuan kingdom. Especially when he talked about President Fong, he seemed to be very casual. He didn't have the kind of reverence that Li Ran had for a god. As for the royal surname, although it wasn't the royal surname of the Jinyuan kingdom, it was basically forbidden in any country. At most, it could be changed to Huang. However, this old man's surname was Huang. When he introduced himself, he even, brazenly, said that he was the emperor of the royal family. This made one ponder deeply. Second update. Wushan was really miserable. First, he got stuck. Second, he had a cold and cough. Wushan didn't think about telling people that he was sick. He hated people who took time off due to illness the most. Therefore, after he got stuck and didn't write the second update yesterday, he immediately posted a single chapter saying that it was the 3rd update today. After he finished, Wushan had a headache. It was his daughter's birthday today. He was scolded by his wife and felt extremely ashamed. Fortunately, his wife was also chasing after Proud Heaven and understood his feelings. He could only let his daughter suffer. This birthday, I only accompanied her for lunch. I will post the 3rd update tonight. It will probably be a little late. The number of words in today's chapters is a little low. I hope you don't blame Wushan. It's really not easy being a father. Thank you. Number 16. Tragedy? Chuan Liang Wuzi, Tianhen Song Jing, A Dream of Old Scenery, Fong by Passionate Love Carat, Like Ice Raging Fire, Swaying Drunken Red, and number 17. Dust 369, Chuan Liang Wuzi, Luoshi? Passionate Love Carat, Low-Key Little Devil, Emosieu, for the donations and support these 2 days. Thank you. Chapter 67. Along the way, Huang Qi's mouth was never idle. Some were asked by Chen Hao, some were answered by Huang Qi himself. Gradually, even Mo Yui and Helian Wuzi would occasionally interrupt to ask questions. When they arrived at the Lansong province in the middle of the night, Chen Hao and the other 2 had a more comprehensive understanding of the Royal New Show Hall. Yali Mountain was definitely huge. In Huang Qi's words, the 3 of them were undoubtedly at the bottom of the list. To be able to stand out among the superpowers of the province, the weakest of them was a 9th-grade martial master. Most of them were martial kings. As for Chen Hao and the other two, they were only martial masters. After the Cloud State martial gathering, Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui had both broken through their original realms after a month of consolidation. Helian Wuzi had advanced to a 9th-grade martial master and Mo Yui had advanced to an 8th-grade martial master. However, Chen Hao, in terms of realms, was barely at the peak of a 5th-grade martial master. In Huang Qi's words, this was breaking the record of the lowest level of the Royal New Show Hall. Of course, Chen Hao's age also broke the record of the lowest level. After the Cloud Province martial gathering, Chen Hao did not stop cultivating. However, after the strange change in his mind, after swallowing the black box and entering the illusion, Chen Hao seemed to have returned to the time when he was in the Demon Cloud Mountain range. The inherent Yuan power did not change, but the Yuan power of heaven and earth that he absorbed during cultivation once again mysteriously disappeared. In the past, Chen Hao did not understand. However, now he was certain that there was another existence in his mind. After a period of time, he could only ignore it and not think about it. Chen Hao believed that there would be a day when this existence would appear. Of course, there was another reason why Chen Hao was so open-minded. It was because this mysterious existence didn't seem to have any ill intent towards him. On the contrary, as long as Chen Hao fell asleep, the terrifying sword light would appear in his mind. Moreover, it seemed to be consciously allowing Chen Hao to comprehend it. Chen Hao's state of mind couldn't help but fuse with it every time, causing Chen Hao's comprehension of the sword Dao to deepen. However, it was precisely this kind of enormous pressure that made the three of them even more determined to fight. Chen Hao, in particular, was looking forward to the life he was about to face. Through Huang Qi's words, Chen Hao understood that after entering the Royal New Show Hall, his cultivation was basically completely free. This was exactly what he wanted. Sigh. It's already late at night. Why can't I see any kittens or puppies? The pitch-black official road was sandwiched between the continuous mountain ranges. The mountain wind blew intermittently, like the howling of wolves, bringing with it a hint of terror. It was the time when the night was dark and the wind was strong. Although there weren't any strong beasts in the mountains, no one wanted to meet them. What's more, bandits and mountain kings were very popular everywhere. Therefore, during the night, there were almost no pedestrians. Those who dared to travel at this time were either due to a malfunction that delayed the time to enter the city, or because they were skilled and daring. Huang Qi was obviously the latter. He even spoke with a hint of dissatisfaction. After a day of continuous galloping, although they had luxury goods like fasting pills to provide energy, their speed still slowed down. Fortunately, they were only about 100 miles away from the Lansong provincial capital. Little guy, you're quite spirited. You're full of energy without the slightest bit of weakness. Your potential is really not bad. Huang Qi turned his head and lightly scanned with his mental energy. He clearly sensed the condition of Chen Hao and the other two. At this moment, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He frowned slightly. In the depths of his mind, a familiar and strange fluctuation quietly appeared in Chen Hao's heart. Furthermore, it was a little stronger. What's wrong? Huang Qi noticed that Chen Hao was acting strangely and asked curiously. The drowsy Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui also looked at Chen Hao. Cough cough. Uncle Huang, I need to go to the toilet. What Huang Qi didn't expect, Helian Wuzi frowned slightly, and Mo Yui was a little surprised was that Chen Hao actually said such a sentence. As a martial artist and a martial master at that, although eating, drinking, and going to the toilet were still very necessary, for matters like going to the toilet, it wasn't a problem at all to hold it in for a few days and nights. After all, the body had been tempered by elemental energy, and the tenacity and flexibility of the organs in the body were very strong. Can't hold it in? Huang Qi asked, a little amused. Can I hold it in? Will I still be so spirited? In front of Helian Wuzi, this stunning little girl, Chen Hao didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed and said very calmly. Big one or small one? Small one, come to the front of the carriage to take care of it. In another hour, we'll reach the Lansong province. Huang Qi said. Mo Yui didn't think much of it, But when Helian Wuzi heard Huang Qi's words, she frowned and fiercely glared at Chen Hao before turning her face to the side. Big one. Uncle Huang, you guys continue forward. Wait for me at the front. I'll find a place to take care of it and then follow. It seems like I have diarrhea. It might take a little longer. How can that be? If you encounter a demonic beast, you'll be in danger. So, Huang Qi said as he pulled the reins and stopped the carriage. Go quickly, finish it quickly. Just by the side of the road, we'll wait for you here. No, I know you guys are nearby. I won't be able to do it. I have diarrhea. It's very smelly. You guys should go further away. If there's a problem, I'll call for help. Chen Hao said as he jumped off the carriage. He held his stomach with one hand and waved at Huang Qi with the other. Just wait for me 2 miles away. Go, I can't hold it in anymore. There's no powerful demonic beast near the official road. I can easily take care of a peak level 4 demonic beast. You brat. All right, if there's a situation, immediately call for help. And Chen Hao replied. As he spoke, his gaze swept back and forth, as if he was looking for a place to place a mine. His figure flashed, and as fast as lightning, he rushed into the forest beside the official road. So disgusting. Sitting in the carriage, Helian Wuzi's face was slightly red as she said in a low voice. Ah. Huang Qi laughed and waved his horsewhip. Even he didn't think that Chen Hao was bluffing. Instead, he felt that Chen Hao, this little guy, was very interesting. Especially Chen Hao's lightning-like figure and his tone when he said that he could easily take care of a peak level 4 demonic beast. This made him admire him very much. A peak level 4 demonic beast was equivalent to a peak level 9 martial master. Furthermore, a demonic beast's special physique was usually even stronger. And Chen Hao, who was not even 13 years old, had such battle strength. Obviously, it wasn't a bluff. Since Huang Qi came to pick up the 3, he naturally understood the situation of the 3. Swoosh, swoosh. After Chen Hao entered the forest, he didn't move quickly at first. However, after the carriage traveled a distance of 300 meters, he immediately retracted his aura. His entire person suddenly became silent. Like a ghost, he quickly moved in the direction he sensed in his mind. There wasn't any fluctuation of origin power. There was only the strongest concealment technique in ancient Chinese martial arts. His rapidly moving figure seemed to have blended into the forest, cleverly avoiding every blade of grass and leaf as he advanced. Third update. Please collect, recommend. Thank you. Chapter 68. Gradually, the fluctuations in Chen Hao's mind became clearer. When this feeling appeared in the past, Chen Hao thought that he was naturally sensitive to spiritual herbs, but now he knew that it was because of the mysterious existence in his mind. It was all thanks to this mysterious existence that he could constantly obtain spiritual herbs in the Demon Cloud Mountain range. This was an abnormal existence that was equivalent to a treasure hunting tool. This time, the feeling was so strong that Chen Hao did not hesitate to use the excuse of needing to go to the toilet to fool Huang Qi and the others. By doing so, even if Chen Hao was delayed for too long, Huang Qi would find him and it would be easier to explain. Bumping into a spiritual herb while taking a dump could only be considered super lucky. If he said that he had sensed a spiritual herb in the carriage, it would be too shocking. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chen Hao moved forward quickly. As he got closer, the fluctuations in his mind became more and more intense. This made Chen Hao very excited because the stronger the fluctuations, the stronger the spiritual herb he sensed. However, at the same time, he became anxious. At this moment, he had been running for more than 10 minutes and was at least 10 miles away from the official road. However, other than the fluctuations becoming stronger, the destination was still locked in one direction and there was no end. This was something that had never happened before. One had to know that although his sensing range for spiritual herbs was much higher than that of ordinary people, the distance was still very limited. What did it mean to be 10 miles? Moreover, he did not know how far it would take to reach it. Why isn't this kid back yet? I'll go take a look, you guys wait here. After Huang Qi drove the carriage a few hundred meters forward, he stopped at the side of the official road and waited for Chen Hao. However, after waiting for a full 20 minutes, Huang Qi was a little anxious. After saying that, he flew into the air and rushed toward the place where Chen Hao had entered the forest. His powerful mental power also spread out in all directions. His speed was countless times faster than Chen Hao's, but what surprised Huang Qi was that he could not sense Chen Hao's aura within 1,000 feet radius. Strange. Huang Qi frowned slightly and suddenly shouted, "Chen Hao, were you kid?" The majestic mental power transmitted his voice far away. As long as Chen Hao was within 10 miles, he would definitely be able to hear him. However, there was no response. Chen Hao seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Even the places he passed by did not leave behind a trace of his aura. This was a little strange. One had to know that Huang Qi was a willpower expert who was even stronger than Li Ran. His spiritual perception was definitely quite powerful. As long as it was an aura that he was familiar with, he would be able to detect it within a short period of time. But just now, Chen Hao had clearly entered the forest from here, but at this moment, not a trace of his aura remained. What was going on? Huang Qi did not dare to hesitate any longer. He instantly pushed his mental energy to the limit and flew through the air like lightning. He sensed the aura fluctuations in the surroundings and began to search for Chen Hao. Whoosh whoosh, an hour later, Chen Hao was still going deeper and deeper. He was getting more and more excited and anxious. He knew very well that Huang Qi and the other two had probably come looking for him by now. However, even after running at full speed for an hour, he still hadn't reached his destination. The fluctuations in his mind were getting more and more intense. Phew! After another 10 minutes, Chen Hao finally climbed to the top of the mountain. The mountain wind was whistling. Chen Hao, who was running at high speed, suddenly broke out in cold sweat and stopped abruptly. This seemingly gentle mountain peak was actually like Heavenly Road Mountain. On the other side was an extremely steep cliff. "Motherfucker, are you playing with me?" At this moment, Chen Hao was enraged. He had used such a shameless method of defecating to run over. Furthermore, this would definitely cause Huang Qi to come back and look for him. However, after running with all his might for more than an hour, all he got in return was a cliff. Moreover, if it weren't for his amazing eyesight and the ability to see in the dark, he would have rushed over the cliff and fallen to his death. How could he not be angry? Hiss, hiss, hiss. In response to Chen Hao, invisible tentacle-like energy automatically spread out from between his eyebrows. Unlike when he devoured the black box, this time, Chen Hao's mind seemed to be connected with these tentacles, causing his perception to suddenly be strangely distorted and rapidly spread toward the cliff. To Chen Hao's surprise, right at this moment, the scene before his eyes seemed to have changed. The towering cliff had vanished, and it was replaced by a barren round mountain that emanated strands of milky white light. Moreover, there were flat rocks before his eyes. Chen Hao's eyes widened in surprise, and then he closed his eyes and rubbed them hard. When he opened his eyes again, it was still not a cliff. This strange scene caused Chen Hao to be unable to distinguish which one was an illusion. The only thing he could be sure of was that he was standing on solid ground. Chen Hao closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and carefully stretched out his foot. A strange wave came from his foot, as if his foot had passed through a layer of barrier and stepped into another world. Finally, the solid feeling of touching the ground came, proving that what Chen Hao saw at this moment was real. Boom! The tentacles that unintentionally spread out also completely extended in. At this moment, the waves in Chen Hao's mind became extremely violent, causing Chen Hao to muster up his courage and step in. Hiss, hiss, hiss. When Chen Hao's body completely passed through the barrier, the tentacle-like existence between his eyebrows suddenly began to move. At the same time, the majestic and terrifying energy, like a flash flood, was not under Chen Hao's control and surged into the space between his eyebrows. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind felt a terrifying suction force, and before he could react, it was completely absorbed into his mind. There was no sky, no earth, only the brilliant sword light. A huge sword that emitted an ancient aura, and the sword body was covered with complicated runes, as if it was connected to the starry sky of the universe. The sword tip was facing up, and the sword hilt was facing down. The entire space revolved with it, was born with it, and was destroyed with it. It was the master of this space. And Chen Hao seemed to be the incarnation of the sword. His body was the sword, and his heart was the sword. He had fallen into a wonderful state. His body naturally sat cross-legged on the peak of the round mountain, and endless heaven and earth energy entered the space between his eyebrows at a terrifying speed. At the same time, the round mountain below him rapidly shrank. This situation was as if Chen Hao was the mountain, such a powerful and terrifying fluctuation, but no one could see it. Even Huang Qi, who was flying high in the sky and pushing his mental strength to the limit, did not sense the slightest fluctuation. Chen Hao bathed in the brilliant sword light and did not move at all. Time slowly passed. After 2 hours, the round mountain finally disappeared completely. Chen Hao was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Explosions could be heard from 100 feet away from him. It was as if his chi cover had been blown apart. Then, Chen Hao's figure gradually appeared. The mountain was still a mountain. But it was the extremely ordinary mountain that Chen Hao had seen before. The cliff was no longer there, and the round mountain was no longer there. Only Chen Hao was there. Slowly opening his eyes, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with intense shock. Chen Hao! Chen Hao! Just at this moment, Huang Qi's voice, which was filled with mental strength and with a trace of anxiety, floated into Chen Hao's ears. Shut up! Chen Hao roared in his mind, and with a bang, he jumped up and immediately gathered his mental strength and shouted, Uncle Huang! I'm here, quickly come and save me. P.S. Thank you for yesterday's news. Tragedy? Passionate love Chuan Liang Wuzi, Emochingi Yuling? Mu Yi, Book Friend 120504233205483, and 6 friends gave their support. In the morning, I went to the hospital for an infusion and was delayed for more than 2 hours. Sorry for the late update. Chapter 69. Chen Hao's voice carried a trace of fear as it floated from behind Huang Qi, causing his rapidly moving figure to stop abruptly. After an entire hour, he could not sense any trace of Chen Hao's aura. He could only use the place where Chen Hao had left as the core and search in a radial pattern. Although his cultivation was high and his speed was fast, the range of his mental strength was limited. After searching for an hour, he had already confirmed that something had happened to Chen Hao. It was very likely that he had encountered a rare flying demonic beast, and it was much higher than Chen Hao's realm. Otherwise, he would not have disappeared without a trace. This was a disgrace. He was a Grand Emperor will, and a rank 9 will Emperor peak at that, but he could not even protect a little fellow. How could he report back? Especially when this little fellow was not Helian Wuzi, nor was it Moue, but the one Feng Yuan valued the most, Chen Hao, the one who had the rare physique of dual cultivation of will and martial arts, and had astonishing talent in cultivation. If he was alive, he had to see the person. If he was dead, he had to see the corpse. Things had already reached this stage. Huang Qi could only carefully search every inch of the place. Even if he could find a trace of clothes, bones, or blood, he would still be able to give a little bit of an explanation. After an hour, he shouted Chen Hao's name, from small to large circles, spreading outwards. He was dozens of li away from the place where Chen Hao had drilled into the forest. Even with his high cultivation, after circling around like a donkey for an hour, his mental strength was on the verge of exhaustion. If he persevered for a little longer, he would have to give up even if he did not want to, but at this time, Chen Hao's cry for help suddenly came from behind him. How could Huang Qi not be surprised? Of course, he was even more surprised. Swoosh! His body immediately turned into a flash of lightning, rapidly moving towards the direction of the voice. Uncle Huang, save me! Save me! What made Huang Qi stare with wide eyes was that the voice was clearly below him, but he could not see Chen Hao's figure. There was only a mountain peak. Even Chen Hao's voice was faintly discernible, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Spirit lock bewitching array? Huang Qi's eyes shone with a bright light as he stared at the mountain below him. He took a deep breath and said in shock, May I know which senior is here? This junior is from the imperial family, Your Majesty. Please show mercy and let this child go. Hiss hiss. As Huang Qi spoke, the formation that trapped Chen Hao suddenly fluctuated. It immediately dissipated like smoke, and Chen Hao's seemingly dazed figure appeared before Huang Qi's eyes. "Uncle Emperor, you're finally here," Chen Hao exclaimed in surprise. "Thank you, Senior." Huang Qi cupped his fists and said respectfully. After saying that, he landed beside Chen Hao, grabbed him, and flew into the air. At the same time, he said loudly, "Thank you, Senior." Chen Hao looked at Huang Qi with a strange expression. He wanted to say something, but Huang Qi sent out a mental power to stop Chen Hao. He quickly returned in the direction of the carriage. "How is it? What a simple matter." When Huang Qi flew back to the carriage with Chen Hao, an old voice strangely appeared in Chen Hao's mind. It sounded a little smug. "Shut up. You're taking all the benefits, and I'm not getting any. You even made me act," Chen Hao said angrily. "Short-sighted. The old man being able to awaken is a great benefit to you. Without the old man, you would have died a long time ago." "Nonsense. Without you, I would have broken through to martial master long ago. You stole my energy and disrespected your elders, and you still have the nerve to say that?" Cough cough. "I only borrowed a little bit of energy. Without it, the old man wouldn't have been able to sense your situation. This is necessary. Moreover, didn't you realize that when you needed to improve, the old man wouldn't lend you his energy? Moreover, when you were fighting with Li Yuan without the old man's help, you wouldn't have been able to become the core. The kindness of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This is one of your maxims? Alright, the old man is still very weak. Do as you see fit." "You." Chen Hao still had countless questions to ask, but the old man left quickly and disappeared from Chen Hao's mind. "Shut up and don't make a sound. Go go go." After Huang Qi threw Chen Hao into the carriage, he said sternly. After he finished speaking, he fiercely whipped the horse, as if he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to leave if he was too slow. Even though he had many questions to ask Chen Hao, he held them back for now. Inside the carriage, Mo Yui and Helian Wuzi also looked at Chen Hao strangely. An hour later, when dawn broke and the red clouds gradually appeared in the east, under Huang Qi's ferocious whip, the vast Lansong province appeared in their line of sight. It was also at this time that Huang Qi slowed down. He turned his head and stared at Chen Hao. "Kid, what happened? How did you poop so far away? How did you meet such an expert?" "Uncle Huang, I also didn't want to. I just took off my pants and didn't have time to poop when an old man suddenly appeared and scolded me. He said something about polluting the environment and wanted to punish me. Without any explanation, he grabbed me and flew away. His speed seemed to be faster than you, Uncle Huang. Then you saw the place where I was. I was trapped inside and shouted until my throat was hoarse, but it was useless. There were cliffs on all sides and I was scared to death. That old man said that I would be trapped for at least 3 hours as a punishment for urinating and defecating everywhere. I haven't pooped yet. That old man really deserves to die. Isn't it just pooping and pooping?" Chen Hao said as he held his stomach again, his face full of pain and confusion. "Shut up. Kid, don't talk nonsense." Huang Qi hurriedly stopped him and said, "You came back alive because of that senior's kindness. What's this little punishment? It's really strange. When did our Jinyuan kingdom have such an expert? He actually lived in seclusion in this place. Brat, you almost harmed old man. You pooped, hold it in. Hold it in until you reach the Great Thousand City." "It can't be, Uncle Huang. An expert at the level of divine intent. At the very least, he has to be at the level of divine intent to be able to use his super strong mental power to form the spirit-locking bewildering array. You pooped in the territory of a divine intent. You deserve to be punished." Chen Hao looked at Huang Qi with a face full of surprise. Mo Yui, who still didn't know what happened, had a face full of surprise. Helian Wuzi's beautiful and cold little face, other than surprise, also looked at Chen Hao with a gaze that carried a trace of schadenfreude. The corners of her mouth slightly hooked up, as if she was a little happy. She said in a low voice like a mosquito, "Serves you right, you pooped to death, cough cough." Hearing Helian Wuzi's words, Mo Yui instantly coughed twice and lowered his head. His expression seemed to be focused and gentle as he once again began to stroke his sword wife. This guy wasn't good with words, but that faintly twitching lower abdomen made Chen Hao even despise him. Fuck, he's obviously a coquettish guy. Chen Hao fiercely glared at Helian Woozy. Helian Woozy wasn't afraid at all. She raised her little face and snorted at Chen Hao. If I can't hold it in, I'll poop in front of you and stink you to death. Chen Hao's voice was also like a mosquito's, but every word was clearly said as he looked straight at Helian Woozy. Moue finally couldn't hold it in anymore and spurted out. He hugged his stomach and laughed out loud. You brat. Huang Qi also looked at Chen Hao a little speechlessly and no longer paid attention to the three people who had a strange relationship. Helian Woozy was so angry that her face was flushed red. P.S. Second update. Please add, recommend, thank you. Chapter 70. Outside of the Lansong Province Prefecture city gate, there were lanterns and decorations, and a red carpet was spread out over 100 feet. On both sides of the city gate, there were hundreds of people dressed in luxurious clothes lined up neatly. In the middle stood 5 elders with powerful auras. In the Lansong province, as long as one had some status and knowledge, they would definitely recognize these 5 old men. The person in the middle was the Lansong province's provincial governor, and the 4 old men beside him were equally famous. They were the leaders of the 4 great martial forces in the Lansong province. Even the people standing on both sides had prominent positions in the Lansong province prefecture. This was obviously a formation to welcome an important guest, and they had maintained it for nearly 8 hours. Those with weaker cultivation had their legs stiffened, and the forced smiles on their faces were numb. However, the important guest that they were supposed to welcome had yet to arrive. Ta! The sound of horse hooves, neither too fast nor too slow, drifted from afar along with the rising red sun. At this moment, the 5 old men in the middle looked at each other one after another. It should be Brother Huangqi, right? It should be. Brother Huangqi has such a hobby. I heard that no matter where he goes, he would always drive a horse carriage. It's later than we expected by more than 4 hours. Don't tell me that Yunzhou's Li Ran can't even bear to part with a few good horses? This dog shit is so lucky, but he still can't bear to part with it. He's really too stingy. Brother Zhuge, don't tell me that your reward hasn't arrived yet? You made us wait for so long. The elder who was addressed as Brother Zhuge was the prefecture master, Zhuge Chengfeng, who was standing in the middle. He smiled and shook his head at the elder who was speaking. His gaze slowly swept across the people on both sides, and finally landed on the 13 young boys and girls who looked to be around 16 to 17 years old. He said softly, "Cheer up, especially the 13 of you." These 13 young boys and girls were the 4 major forces in the Lansong Province Prefecture. They had gone through many rounds of selection before they were qualified to stand here. Every single one of them had a powerful aura, especially the young man standing in the middle. He wasn't tall, but he was tall and straight like a pine tree. His entire body exuded an elegant aura. He was handsome, with sword-like eyebrows, red lips, and white teeth. His eyes shone brightly. Regardless of his cultivation, just his appearance and aura alone made the top geniuses of the Lansong province feel ashamed of their inferiority. Ta! The sound of horse hooves approached from afar. A luxurious carriage bathed in the morning sun appeared before everyone's eyes. When the 5 elders leading the group saw the coachman, Zhuge Qingfeng immediately cupped his fists and said loudly, "Brother Huangqi, we've been waiting for you for a long time. You're finally here. Sorry. I was delayed by a pile of shit on the way." Huang Qi seemed to be used to such a grand welcome. He directly said something that made everyone almost spit out. "These are the disciples selected this year?" Huang Qi pulled the reins and jumped down from the carriage. His eyes carried a trace of scrutiny as he looked at the 13 boys and girls and said, "That's right. The lowest cultivation of these 13 people is rank 1 martial monarch and the highest is rank 9 martial monarch. They're all 17 years old." Zhuge Qingfeng hurriedly said, "You've met the requirements, but it seems to be a bit too much. Including the 3 little fellows in the carriage, your Lansong province has 16 people. It's really a bit too much. A total of 13 is still passable." Huang Qi said as he stroked his beard. At the same time, a trace of spirit power slowly spread out and examined the 13 boys and girls. Brother Huang Qi, the 3 of them shouldn't be counted as our Lansong province's quota, right? An elder's face immediately became a bit awkward, but he still firmly said. The reason was very simple. As long as Huang Qi said 3 people would be eliminated, then 2 of the 3 eliminated people would definitely be his disciples. How can it not be counted? Isn't Yunzhou County part of your Lansong province? Brother Huang Qi. Just at that time, another elder looked at one of the youths and couldn't help but open his mouth to argue. They belonged to the Lansong province, but they were personally selected by President Fong. I'm not saying that President Fong's personal selection isn't good, but I'm afraid that they really aren't as outstanding as any of the 13 of us. I can guarantee that. Alright, let's not talk about this first. Brother Huang Qi, you've traveled a long way. Let's first welcome Brother Huang Qi and have a good drink. Brother Huang Qi, I've prepared your favorite jade nectar wine for you. Zhuge Qingfeng saw that Huang Qi's expression changed slightly, so he hurriedly changed the topic and enthusiastically pulled Huang Qi aside. Jade nectar wine? I like it. However, I'll say this first. If I say it's a lot, then it's a lot. 16 people. Although I, Huang Qi, have a lot of authority, I can't hand over the task. There are only 300 people in total, and your Lansong province takes 16. What about the other provinces? Unless the other provinces meet the basic requirements, only 3 people can be eliminated. Therefore, I can only temporarily accept all of them. When the final results are out, if they're eliminated, then don't blame me. Otherwise, there's no point in drinking this wine. Huang Qi said straightforwardly. How could Huang Qi not know that the reason why he was sent to the Lansong province was because this matter was troublesome? Other than him, he really couldn't handle anyone else. Brother Huang Qi is indeed a straightforward person. It's enough that you can do this. We can only pray that the other provinces are not as full of talents as our Lansong province. Brother Huang Qi, please. Zhuge Qingfeng gave a meaningful glance to the 2 old men and enthusiastically pulled Huang Qi aside. At least first-rank martial emperor. While Huang Qi was arguing with the big shot of Lansong province, Chen Hao and the other 2 who were hiding in the carriage, especially Moue and Helian Wuzi, looked at Chen Hao with a bit of surprise. Although they had only been in contact for a day, even Moue and Helian Wuzi didn't realize that they had already regarded Chen Hao as the core of their hearts. Chen Hao's heart was also tangled. Fortunately, Huang Qi didn't let them get off the carriage. Otherwise, the 3 of them would have been instantly killed by everyone's eyes. Wasn't this motherfucker clearly offending someone unknowingly? If Fang Yuan personally appointed them, then they shouldn't occupy Lansong province's quota. Fang Yuan also went through layers of selection and finally promoted to this level. In the end, the 3 of them became Qing Yaojin, who came out of nowhere. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be happy. You 3 little guys, what are you still doing inside? Come out and let them see if you're worthy of Chairman Fang's personal appointment. Just as Chen Hao frowned, Huang Qi suddenly spoke. Moue and Helian Wuzi immediately looked at Chen Hao again. Raise your spirits, don't let them look down on you. Be more arrogant. Anyway, they can't do anything to us. Chen Hao lowered his voice and stared at Moue and Helian Wuzi. Speaking of his aura, it was like performing a magic trick. Instantly, he emitted a sense of arrogance from his bones. His body shook and he pushed open the side door of the carriage, taking the lead to jump down. When Moue saw Chen Hao like this, he immediately took a deep breath. Holding his lover tightly, he also jumped down. However, the corners of Helian Wuzi's mouth curled up slightly. The aura of her entire person instantly turned into the coldest winter. Yunzhou Chen Hao pays his respects to seniors. Chen Hao clasped his fist and bowed towards the 5 old men who were staring at him with bright eyes. Neither servile nor overbearing, his aura was heavy and his expression was calm. His arrogance was in his bones, it wasn't outstanding. On the contrary, it made the 5 old men slightly startled. Everyone's gaze towards Chen Hao also changed slightly. Moue pays his respects to seniors. As if he was affected by Chen Hao, Moue, who jumped down, recovered his cold appearance. Both his hands held his lover, and he bowed towards everyone. Even when he bent down, his upper body was as straight as the big sword in his hand. Helian Wu-zi pays her respects to seniors. The last one to jump out, Helian Wu-zi, instantly made everyone's eyes light up. Even the eyes of the young men who were yearning for love lit up. Especially when her ethereal voice rang out like the tinkling of spring water. Although it was cold, it also cleansed everyone's heart. Even the eyes of the handsome young man in the middle of the 13 couldn't help but shine with a trace of light. Hee. Seeing everyone's expression, a complacent smile appeared on Huang Qi's old face. He said, "Chen Hao, not even 13 years old and a cultivation of a 5th-grade martial master. Very low. But he has the strength of a 9th-grade martial master. Let me ask, when you were a 5th-grade martial master, who could do that? Or, when you were 13 years old, which one of you stepped into the 5th-grade martial master? This doesn't count as much, but he has a rare physique that cultivates both martial arts and intent. Of course, he has even more good points, so I won't say more." Huang Qi's gaze intentionally or unintentionally looked at the old man who said that Chen Hao and the other 2 couldn't compare to any of the 13 of them. He continued, "Mouye's aptitude is a bit lacking, but with your eyes, you should be able to see that his body already contains sword intent, right? Regardless of whether or not he can awaken as a swordsman, what do you think is the value of nurturing him? If he was your disciple, I believe that you would treat him like a treasure, right? This, as for Helian Wu-zi, do you still need me to say it?" Huang Qi glanced at Helian Wu-zi, who was emitting an icy aura, and lightly smiled. This Zhuge Chengfeng, as the lord of Lancang province, felt a bit embarrassed at this moment. He had already opened his mouth twice, wanting to say something, but he didn't know what to say. He had heard that Fang Yuan had personally selected 3 disciples from Cloud State who had obtained the qualifications. Although Cloud State belonged to Lancang, he didn't feel the slightest bit of joy about this matter. Not only did he have to take out a huge reward for Cloud State, he also had to squeeze out the spots chosen by the 4 forces of Lancang. Although he didn't express it, he was dissatisfied with Li Ran in his heart. More or less, he felt that Li Ran was using his status to do some dirty tricks. P.S. Thanks to yesterday's Chengfan Palang, missile launching point, passionate love and MOU for their support. Note, Legends of Ao Tian Tian has been going on for a month, and only Yu is working on the subversion. Yu is a bit busy. Thus, Yu discussed with Dark Mountain and wants to recruit a subversion. The condition is that the person must be a hardcore supporter of Dark Mountain, willing to invest time and energy for our Ao Tian Tian, have basic experience in managing the book review section, and have ample time. Interested friends can reply to Yu's book review application, or enter the VIP group to message Xia Yu. Thank you. Chapter 71. Hee. Everyone, if I were you, not only would I admit that the 3 of them are from Lancang province, I would also let them occupy the quota. That's not enough, I would also support them greatly. There's a good saying, good karma must be formed early. Providing help in times of need is far better than adding flowers to brocade. Look at your disciples, what's wrong with their eyes? Like this, I'm afraid they won't even give me the chance to add flowers to brocade. Huang Qi said arrogantly. It had to be said that this old man was really too bold and direct. Even Chen Hao, who was born with pride, felt a little embarrassed. Brother Huang Qi is right. Looks like I haven't done enough as the prefecture lord. I really didn't expect that this little Yunzhou would have so many hidden talents. In the future, Yunzhou will be one of the bases for our Lancang province's annual selection. Chen Hao, Moue, Helian Wu-zi. Very good. Very good. I will reward the 3 of you greatly. Zhuge Chengfeng's gaze turned towards the 13 young men and women and said, the 13 of you, if you can all enter the Royal New Show Hall, that's naturally the best. If the 3 of you are eliminated, you can't have any complaints. As long as you work hard, there's still a chance next year. Qin Yun, you must treat the 3 of them as brothers and sisters, the same as them. You're all my Lancang people. Do you understand? Prefecture Lord. The young man with an elegant aura in the middle instantly replied in a deep voice. Obviously, he was the dragon head among the 13, and the dragon head that everyone worshipped. Or else, Zhuge Qingfeng would definitely not single out his name and say this. And to be able to become the dragon head that everyone worshipped among the 13 competitors of the 4 top forces, one could imagine how powerful and capable he was to be able to reach such a position. Ha! Straightforward, Brother Zhuge, this old man admires you a little. Huang Qi put his arm around Zhuge Qingfeng's shoulder and laughed. Looks like next year, this old man will have to come here to drink again. Even Huang Qi didn't expect Zhuge Qingfeng to be so decisive. Of course, Huang Qi was also clear that Zhuge Qingfeng's decisive action was not entirely due to Chen Hao and the other two's talents. He had more or less taken into consideration that Zhuge Qingfeng was protecting the 3 of them. Since Zhuge Qingfeng was so straightforward, Huang Qi could not be ungrateful. That was why he said that he would come here next year. With Huang Qi's identity and status, taking care of 1 or 2 people at a time was nothing. How much was this worth? A grand welcoming banquet began at dawn. It was the first time in his life that Chen Hao, who stood alone in the crowd, had drunk wine. In the past, the only hobby of the other him was to drink alone, the strongest kind of alcohol. He had stood at the peak of the world in countless domains, enough to look down on the world with disdain. However, he didn't have anyone he truly trusted. No one knew how lonely he was on the inside despite his cold and arrogant appearance. Wine and beautiful women were his only 2 ways of venting, especially wine. Because of beautiful women, his requirements were too harsh. He didn't care about those who sold their bodies. He didn't want those who approached him without knowing their intentions. He stayed away from those who wanted to bind him with their virginity. The only women he accepted were those who had a clear purpose and were willing to exchange for him, and he had to be interested in them. Because of these kinds of women, he didn't have any psychological pressure or burden, and didn't need to take any responsibility. They didn't owe each other anything. This was how he used to be, a stubborn, antisocial, and closed-off person. The cool and gentle jade nectar wine turned into a burning flame after entering his mouth. It slowly spread to his heart, and all the cells in his body seemed to come alive under this heat. This sort of familiar and wonderful feeling caused Chen Hao's mind to be dazed. His deep and black eyes stared fixedly at the wine cup in his hand, yet his mind had drifted to another world, causing his aura to become misty and distant, and it was as if he didn't fit in with his surroundings at all. Little guy, why do you look more weathered than old man? Do you have something on your mind? Huang Qi, who was sitting at the head of the VIP table, looked at Chen Hao with a strange expression after everyone drank their first cup of wine. He patted his shoulder and asked in a low voice. Helian Wuzi, who also took a sip of wine, her jade-like sparkling and clean little face was dyed with a blush. She looked as if the snow had melted and shone brightly. She also glanced sideways at Chen Hao, who was sitting beside her. Chen Hao came back to his senses and drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. He then said, "Uncle Huang, what can I have on my mind? It's just my first time drinking wine, and it feels pretty good." "Huh. Interesting, old man will drink with you later." Huang Qi smiled and said to Chen Hao. The drinking session lasted from early in the morning until the sun was high in the sky. Zhuge Qingfeng also fulfilled his promise and bestowed Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Mo Yui with 10 level 6 spirit pills each, 100 level 5 spirit pills each, 1,000 fasting pills each, and 1,000 gold notes each. Such a generous reward made Chen Hao and the other 2 surprised. At the same time, it also made them clearly realize the enormous gap between Yunzhou County and Lansong Province. After drinking, Huang Qi didn't waste any time. He still drove the original carriage with Chen Hao and the other 2. The 13 genius disciples of Lansong Province, on the other hand, added 4 more luxurious carriages and directly set off towards the capital. A few days later, Huang Qi received the exact information from the disciples of the various provinces in the Royal New Show Hall. Including the 16 people of Lansong Province, there were still a few people who met the basic requirements to reach the 300 mark. This made the 3 disciples who were in danger of being eliminated completely relax. After several days of continuous contact, Chen Hao and the other two gradually became familiar with the other 13 disciples. Although there was still a barrier between them, at least on the surface, they could be considered to be relatively close. And Helian Wuzi, who could be said to be exceptionally beautiful, undoubtedly became the focus of many youths. Although this girl's expression was always cold and unapproachable, in these 15 days, even the 9th-grade martial king, Zhuge Qingyan, who always had his eyes on the top of his head and disdained women, showed a rare trace of attentiveness to her, even though Zhuge Qingyan only displayed a trace of interest and appeared to be as light as clouds and light as the wind, which also didn't make people feel disgusted. Those who were familiar with him all knew that Helian Wuzi, who could make Zhuge Qingyun take the initiative to come into contact with her, had clearly aroused his interest. Chen Hao, on the other hand, didn't care at all. This was more or less influenced by the other him. Towards women, especially beautiful women, he always maintained a certain level of vigilance. Although he had the heart of an adult, his current body wasn't even 13 years old. He still hadn't reached the age where his heart was rippling with love. As for Mo Yui, he had even less interest towards women. Even if Helian Wuzi, this stunning and eye-catching beauty, was in the same carriage as him at all times, he would never take a second look at her. In his eyes and in his heart, there was only that broken sword. It was fine when there were many people, but in the carriage, because he gradually became familiar with Chen Hao and Helian Wuzi, this fellow no longer had any scruples. Many times, he made Chen Hao and Helian Wuzi have the urge to vomit blood. That gentle gaze, that gentle caress, that infatuated expression. The lethality was simply too great. Great Thousand City, the place that symbolized the highest authority of the Jinyuan kingdom, where countless true experts of the Jinyuan kingdom gathered. In the boundless continent, empires and kingdoms were as numerous as the stars in the sky. Countries were born and declined at all times. For a small country like the Jinyuan kingdom to be able to stand tall, other than having a certain relationship with its geographical location, it also needed to have powerful strength or a powerful backer behind it. The Royal Nusho Hall was the cradle where the true experts of the Jinyuan kingdom were born. It was also the only place that could give birth to experts who could be backed by the Jinyuan kingdom. Only those strong people were above the imperial power. From this, one could imagine what kind of treatment they would receive once they entered the Royal Nusho Hall. Since the founding of the Jinyuan kingdom, there was a mysterious forbidden area in the endless mountain range outside the Great Thousand City, 500 kilometers to the east. Ordinary people couldn't enter it at all, and cultivators who had the strength to enter would be directly killed without exception. This mysterious forbidden area was where the Royal Nusho Hall was located. After abandoning the carriage and running for several hours in the legendary forbidden area with their own cultivation, a gray fog appeared in front of everyone. This fog seemed to cover all the scenery in front of them. From afar, it looked like a dense fog, but after walking closer, everyone could clearly sense traces of mysterious aura flowing in the fog. Hiss, hiss, hiss. When Huang Qi suddenly released a majestic spiritual force that wrapped around everyone and lifted them into the air, the thick smoke suddenly fluctuated violently. It was as if the resplendent sunlight had pierced through the clouds, and a large amount of light burst out. Then, Chen Hao and the others felt as if their bodies were enveloped by water waves, and disappeared in an instant. Then, all of them widened their eyes in shock. Even Chen Hao, who had just experienced the illusion of pooping, was greatly shocked when he stared at the splendid palaces that seemed to be floating among the clouds above the mountains. The 16 disciples of Lan Tsang have arrived. Huang Qi's voice, which was filled with mental energy, drifted out and surrounded the mountain range. This is the Royal Nusho Hall? It is indeed formidable. Chen Hao felt the dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the surroundings as he thought to himself excitedly. Zhuge Qingyun and the others were the same. Huang Qi, can't you change your hobby as a coachman? You are really in a hurry. Quickly bring them over, we are just waiting for you. Right at this moment, an aged and dignified voice sounded. Obviously, Huang Qi's group was the last to arrive. Furthermore, they seemed to be on time. Don't worry, I have calculated the time perfectly. Which time isn't it just right? Huang Qi replied. At the same time, he looked at everyone and said, "Follow me." Damn it, we are almost late again. Little fellow, it's all because of your shit. Cough cough. Uncle Huang, can you stop thinking about this matter? Excessive chapters are too difficult to write. 2 chapters of 6,000 words are finally done. Please recommend and collect. Thank you. Chapter 72. Haha. Huang Qi laughed out loud and led everyone to a majestic palace. The instant Chen Hao and the others entered the palace with Huang Qi, countless probing gazes landed on them. Discussions also rang out in the palace. Lansong province really has 16 people, isn't this a bit too exaggerated? I've said it before, 3 of them were personally chosen by the leader of Intent Guild, Fang Yuan, in a small town. The city lord of that small town is someone from Intent Guild. So you're saying they relied on relationships? Is there even a need to say it? Can't you sense that those 3's aura are only martial masters? Tiske, so beautiful. I didn't expect there to be so many exceptional beauties in this batch of newcomers. Hee hee, it's good that they're able to come to our fierce Sun Hall. Brothers, don't fight with me. Cough cough, Brother Dongfeng, you've already said this 8 times. If you eat meat, you should at least leave some soup for us to drink, right? This little beauty is the Hellion Woozy you spoke of? That's right. I have to say, although my trash cousin is completely useless, his taste in women is quite good. Ha. The young man who called himself Dongfang Jian had a trace of obscenity in his gaze as he stared at Hellion Woozy, who was walking beside Chen Hao, and spoke to the people sitting beside him in a low voice. This guy looked to be in his early 20s, but the aura around him was extremely terrifying. From his domineering words, one could guess that he was one of the strongest people in the new show hall's 3 halls, Fierce Wind Hall. This guy was from one of the 3 great families of Zhenyuan Kingdom, the Dongfang family. 4 years ago, he entered the Royal New Show Hall. He was only 21 years old this year, but he had the strength of a rank 5 martial emperor. Even in the Royal New Show Hall, he was ranked in the top 10. The reason why he knew about Hellion Woozy, Chen Hao and the others was because of his cousin, Dongfang Zan. Although Dongfang Zan was trash compared to him, he and Dongfang Zan were birds of a feather. They were extremely interested in women, especially beauties. And Dongfang Zan, who was always fawning over him with beauties, talked to him about everything. What was different from the discussions of the old birds in the Royal New Show Hall was that most of the new disciples didn't care. They were all discussing how the martial masters from the Lansong province were qualified, and there were as many as 3 of them. These 16 people are the ones who have obtained the qualifications to enter the Lansong province. Among them, 3 were personally selected by President Fang Yuan. After Huang Qi brought Chen Hao and the others to the front of the stage, he faced the few big shots who were sitting on the rostrum, who were obviously the higher-ups of the Royal New Show Hall. He still looked casual and carefree as he pointed at Chen Hao and the others and introduced them. Hearing Huang Qi's introduction, the people who were still discussing immediately understood. Soon after, his sharp gaze fell on Chen Hao, Hellion Woozy, and Mo Yui, as if he wanted to see what was so special about the 3 of them. Take your seats. Since everyone is here, we can start. This year, we are recruiting a total of 294 disciples. I believe you all already know the general situation of our new show hall, so the old man will not repeat it. The 3 halls, Fierce Sun Hall, Cold Moon Hall and Cold Star Hall. There isn't much difference between the 3 halls, and you can choose as you wish. There is one thing I need to remind everyone: the allocation of spirit medicines and benefits for each hall is completely equal. If there are too many people in a hall, the portion that can be allocated to each person will naturally decrease. Thus, over the years, there has been almost no difference in the number of people in the 3 halls. You all need to pay attention to this point. Disciples whose names are called, please immediately make your choice and line up in the corresponding camp. You may begin. Following the words of the old man in the middle, the hall master of the Royal New Show Hall, Zhao Xingxin, another old man on the rostrum, the vice hall master of the New Show Hall, immediately began to call out the names. Zhao family's 4 disciples. First, Zhao Yunfei, 16 years old, rank 1 martial emperor. Which hall do you choose? Hua, When the vice hall master called out the first name, the crowd burst into an uproar. Not to mention Chen Hao and the other new disciples, even some of the older disciples were shocked. The Zhao family was the head of the Jinyuan kingdom's 3 great clans. They were also the ruler of the Jinyuan kingdom. The head of the Zhao family was the current king of the Jinyuan kingdom. Even the new show hall's hall master, Zhao Xingchen, was a member of the Zhao family. Amazing! Half a year ago, Zhao Yunfei was only a rank 8 martial monarch. Never would I have expected that he would become a rank 1 martial emperor now. He's only 16 years old. Among the crowd, some of the older disciples couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Likely, only the 3 great clans, with their vast resources, could nurture such an astonishing genius. As the crowd exclaimed in admiration, a tall and robust youngster filled with masculine aura, who was sitting at the very front, stood up neither quickly nor slowly, clasped his fist and said, "Fierce Sun Hall." Soon after, the other 3 rank 7, rank 4 and rank 3 martial monarchs from the Zhao family also chose the Fierce Sun Hall. After the Zhao family, it was the Dongfang family and the Bailey family. The number 1 geniuses from the 2 families were slightly inferior. The strongest among them were rank 9 martial monarchs. They chose the Cold Moon Hall and the Cold Star Hall respectively. After that, it was the disciples from the various provinces. The majority of the disciples that came from the same place chose the same hall. Only a very small number of people made different choices. Every time a beauty started to choose, some of the older disciples in the hall would shout and clamor for the beauty to choose the hall they were in. Dongfang Zhen was, without a doubt, the one who clamored the most fiercely. "Senior brother Qingyun, which hall should we choose?" Not long after the start of the hall selection, Chen Hao and the other 16 disciples from the Lancang province asked Zhuge Qingyun. "I don't mind. However, the Cold Star Hall was the majority in our Lancang province. Although there isn't much of a difference between the 3 halls, there are still some differences. The Fierce Sun Hall focuses on the masculine and masculine aspects, the Cold Moon Hall focuses on the feminine and feminine aspects, and the Cold Star Hall is more moderate." Zhuge Qingyun said indifferently. As he spoke, he looked at Helian Wuzi and said with a light smile, "Junior sister Xiaowu, which hall do you like?" Helian Wuzi was slightly taken aback. However, she immediately shook her head and said in a low voice, "I'm fine with anything. Since that's the case, we'll choose the Cold Star Hall. This way we can take care of each other. With me here, I believe that no one will dare to bully you." Zhuge Qingyun said with a trace of a smile on his face and a trace of arrogance. The strength of a peak 9th grade martial monarch was not inferior to the peak geniuses of the 3 great clans. He could definitely be considered as one of the top few people in this generation and had the qualifications to be arrogant. The reason why he chose the Cold Star Hall was because he had the greatest confidence in obtaining the position of the head disciple in this generation's Cold Star Hall. The others were fine. However, Chen Hao had other plans. He, who was born with an unyielding character, was unwilling to make friends with people who thought highly of themselves. Towards Zhuge Qingyun, he didn't dislike him. It was just that he didn't want to make friends with him from the bottom of his heart. Chen Hao believed that although he was only a 5th grade martial master, no matter which hall he entered, it would be spectacular. It was only a matter of time. After all, Zhuge Qingyun came from the same place as him. If he could avoid him, he would avoid him. Lancang Province's 16 disciples. First place, Zhuge Qingyun, 17 years old, 9th grade martial monarch. Which hall do you choose? Zhuge Qingyun's strength of a 9th grade martial monarch inevitably caused an uproar. Under everyone's gazes, Zhuge Qingyun slowly stood up and announced the Cold Star Hall. Soon after, 13 people followed Zhuge Qingyun and chose the Cold Star Hall. At this time, the Vice Hall Master pointed out the 3 people that Fang Yuan personally picked. Although Chen Hao's cultivation was inferior to Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, his importance was above the 2. Thus, the first person he pointed out was Chen Hao. When it was announced that Chen Hao was 13 years old and was a 5th grade martial master, it caused quite a commotion. Although the people present were all peak geniuses, none of them could advance to a 5th grade martial master at the age of 13. Fortunately, The vice hall master only mentioned these 2 points and didn't mention his special physique and true battle strength. Otherwise, the commotion it would cause might even surpass Zhao Yunfei. I choose the Cold Moon Hall, Chen Hao said without any hesitation. Hearing Chen Hao's words, everyone was astonished, especially Zhuge Qingyun and the others. Of course, Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui were also slightly stunned. No one would have thought that Chen Hao would give them special treatment. As for Huang Qi, who swaggered to the rostrum, he stared at Chen Hao with wide eyes and grinned. This little guy, old man's words are in vain. The vice hall master didn't give the crowd too much time to be astonished and directly pointed out Helian Wuzi. Lai Yang, choose Lai Yang. Senior brother will take care of you. Leng Yu, Cold Star welcomes you. The vice hall master had just pointed out Helian Wuzi's name and the old bird started to clamor crazily. Her degree of popularity was obviously very high. Zhuge Qingyun's gaze was fervent as he stared at Helian Wuzi with a trace of a confident smile. He believed that Helian Wuzi wouldn't give them special treatment because of Chen Hao. Although Chen Hao's talent was astonishing, he was still too weak now. How could he be compared to him? Helian Wuzi frowned slightly and slowly stood up. After hesitating for a moment, her cold and ethereal voice suddenly rang out. I choose Cold Moon Hall. Zhuge Qingyun's expression instantly changed. Chen Hao also looked at Helian Wuzi strangely and asked, Why are you choosing with me? It's none of your business. Helian Wuzi stared straight at Chen Hao and said angrily. After a slight pause, she seemed to feel that something was wrong and stared at Chen Hao. She said fiercely, I will make you pay back what you owe me one day. You want to run? It's not that easy. I choose Cold Moon Hall. At this moment, Mo Yui didn't even frown and said straightforwardly. Huang Qi, who was paying attention to the 3 of them, grinned and muttered to himself, These 3 little guys are still the most interesting. P.S. It's really too painful. Fortunately, it's finally over. A new environment, a new beginning. Please believe that Dark Mountain will do its best to write it well. I beg the students who haven't collected it yet to collect it. Thank you. Also, thank you for yesterday's 7 friends, Passionate Love Carrot, Scoundrel, Chuan Liang Wuzi, A Dream of Old Scenery, Mo Yui, Harmless Donkey, and Feng Bai for their support. Thank you. Chapter 73. The selection of the hall ended. Like in previous years, Fierce Sun Hall still had the most disciples, 107 people. Next was Cold Star Hall, 102 people. Cold Moon Hall had the least, 85 people. Although the 3 halls had no fundamental differences, due to the 3 hall masters themselves, they focused on different aspects. Cold Moon Hall focused on using softness to overcome strength. Being extremely lean and soft, it was not as popular as being extremely tough and fierce, especially when more than 80% of the disciples were males. Naturally, more people chose Fierce Sun Hall. Cold Star Hall, which was more average, was stronger than Cold Moon Hall. Qin Si, Xiao He, Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui stepped forward. When Chen Hao and the other new disciples of Cold Moon Hall were led to the plaza of the main peak where Cold Moon Hall was located, an old steward of Cold Moon Hall first called out the names of 5 people. Chen Hao and the other 2 were among them. The 5 were slightly stunned before stepping forward and standing in front of the group. Chen Si and Xiao He were personally picked by Imperial Tutor Long Xiao. Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui were personally picked by President Fang Yuan. The 5 of you definitely have special talents, there is no doubt about it. But the basic requirement for our new show hall is Emperor level. Thus, before you step into Emperor level, you are not qualified to participate in any trials. This is to protect you. You can enjoy the benefits temporarily, but it is also a basic benefit. Once you step into Emperor level and have the qualifications to participate in the trials, your benefits will be assessed according to your trial results. Understood? Understood. The 5 replied in a deep voice. Evidently, the 5 were not surprised. Chen Hao and the other 2 had also heard about it from Huang Qi. That's good. I hope you can advance to Emperor level as soon as possible and catch up with the other disciples. Return to the group. After the old man finished speaking, he began to introduce the rules of the Royal New Show Hall to the new disciples. After briefly introducing the basic situation of Cold Moon Hall, he let a few stewards distribute clothing and basic benefits for the first month to Chen Hao and the others. Then he arranged their dormitories. As expected of the Royal New Show Hall, the basic monthly benefits are 1 rank 6 spirit pill, 5 rank 5 spirit pills. When everyone received the first month's benefits, except for a few people who were clear about the situation, most of them were pleasantly surprised. One had to know that this was only a basic benefit. If he started to participate in the trial and had good results, the level of benefits would increase. How much would it be then? Looks like I'll have to advance to the Emperor level first. With the rewards from my family, Li Ran, and Zhuge Chengfeng, plus the basic benefits I can receive every month, it shouldn't take long as that old man doesn't cause trouble, right? The spiritual qi of heaven and earth here is so dense. Even if there are no elixirs, the cultivation effect will be several times better. Chen Hao thought in his heart. Thinking of this, Chen Hao looked at Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, who were like taciturn gourds. The two of them did not hesitate to follow him and choose Cold Moon Hall. Helian Wuzi said that it was for revenge, but only she knew the actual situation. As for Mo Yui, it was obvious that he chose because of him and Helian Wuzi. Walking out of Yunzhou County together, the three of them seemed to have become one. Especially in this place where they were unfamiliar with the people. Chen Hao was the youngest, but he was the most steady, experienced, and had the strongest combat strength. So, he naturally became the core of the three of them. Let's go back to the dormitory and cultivate hard. We have to advance to the Martial Emperor level as soon as possible. Mo Yui responded. I'll advance to the Martial Emperor level first, then I'll teach you a lesson. Helian Wuzi glared at Chen Hao and said in a low voice. She, who was as cold as ice, seemed to have a slight change in her expression after making her choice to go to Cold Moon Hall. At least, it was much better than before, when she seemed to have no feelings. I'm not afraid of being taken advantage of. You're welcome anytime. Chen Hao said with a slight smile, glancing at Helian Wuzi. After speaking, he took the lead and walked forward. Helian Wuzi's expression changed, but she did not continue speaking. She glared fiercely at Chen Hao's back and followed Mo Yui. Hello, junior sister Xiao Wu. When the three of them quickly walked towards the dormitory area, four youths suddenly cut in front of the three of them, blocking their path. Among them, the leading youth had a slight smile on his face. He actually looked at Helian Wuzi as if he was familiar with her and greeted her. The three of them had to stop. Helian Wuzi frowned slightly. Junior sister Xiao Wu, I'm Dongfang Jun, the chief disciple of Cold Moon Hall this year. Before coming to the Royal New Show Hall, I heard about you from that good-for-nothing cousin of mine. Fortunately, he did not do anything to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let him off. I didn't expect junior sister Xiao Wu to be so beautiful and talented. I fell in love with you at first sight. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to look for me. As long as I can do it, I promise to help you. I don't need it. Helian Wuzi said coldly. Dongfang Zan's words made Helian Wuzi's expression turn colder and colder. Even the aura around her was emitting an extreme chill at this moment. It was obvious that she was unhappy with the guy who called himself Dongfang Jun. I don't need it, was already the limit. If it wasn't for the fact that she was weaker than him, she would have already attacked. When she was choosing the hall, she already knew that these four people were disciples of the Dongfang family and Dongfang Jun was a 9th grade martial king expert. Why were the people of the Dongfang family so annoying? Why were they like flies that could be met everywhere? A fool Dongfang Zan was not enough to say that the Dongfang family was trash. But now there was a second one. Was it still an exception? If the three of them knew that there was an even stronger Dongfang Jian in Fierce Sun Hall who was also this kind of person, they would probably be able to conclude the Dongfang family. Mo Yui held his large sword tightly. His gaze became as sharp as a sword and his expression was even colder. The only one whose expression and aura did not change was Chen Hao, who was standing between Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui. Junior sister Xiao Wu, I like girls like you the most. Of course, you might feel that my honesty is too abrupt. But it's okay. In the future, you will find that I have never, not interested. Without waiting for Dongfang Jun to finish, Helian Wuzi said coldly, "Let's go." After Helian Wuzi finished speaking, she directly said to Chen Hao and Mo Yui. She took the lead to go around Dongfang Jun and walked forward. Ha! Dongfang Jun looked at Helian Wuzi's graceful back. He didn't care about being rebuffed. How could the woman he had his eyes on run away? It was only a matter of time. As long as Helian Wuzi was promoted to Marshal King and obtained the qualifications for the trial, he would have countless opportunities to conquer this unruly rouge horse. Femme fatale. When Chen Hao and the other two walked into the dormitory area, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He suddenly spat out 4 words to Helian Wuzi. "You're the one who's causing trouble." Helian Wuzi was slightly stunned, but then her face turned slightly red. She angrily glared at Chen Hao and said, when she was facing Dongfang Jun just now, she could clearly feel that Mo Yui had the intention to help her. But Chen Hao was calm and had no intention of helping her. It was fine if he didn't want to help, but at this time, he even said such words. It was really too infuriating. I want to. If a beautiful woman like Dongfang Jun came looking for me, I think I wouldn't even frown. Chen Hao shrugged and said casually, "Just you wait. Within a month, I'll definitely be promoted to Marshal King. I'll teach you a lesson." Helian Wuzi was so angry that her delicate body trembled. Even when she was facing Dongfang Jun just now, she wasn't so angry. I'll wait and see what methods Dongfang Jun will use to deal with you after you become a Marshal King and start the trial without me and little Mo. Chen Hao suddenly looked directly at Helian Wuzi and said clearly. After he finished speaking, his figure flashed and he quickly went back to his dormitory. And Helian Wuzi, who was originally so angry that her heart was attacked by anger, was stunned speechless. Mo Yui, who was called Little Mo by Chen Hao, didn't seem to have any feelings towards this title. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the 13-year-old Chen Hao calling him Little Mo. He only glanced at Helian Wuzi and said, "He's right." Then he quickly rushed to the dormitory that was separated from Chen Hao's. Helian Wuzi was stunned for a while, then she bit her seductive lips and snorted. Even she didn't notice that there seemed to be a trace of a smile on her cold little face. The anger that had just risen was also extinguished in an instant. She walked into the dormitory between Chen Hao and Mo Yui. Although it was called a dormitory, it was built side by side. It was more than 10 times bigger than the Shao family's dormitory. The 3 people's dormitories were also next to each other. Chen Hao picked up the golden key with a trace of spiritual imprint and opened the door of the dormitory. The spacious dormitory had a cultivation room, bedroom, study, bathroom, and toilet. All kinds of facilities were available. It was many times better than the Shao family's dormitory that was ventilated on all 4 sides. Chen Hao really hadn't lived in such a luxurious dormitory in his life. Especially the cultivation room, the construction materials were all ores that contained the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There were also experts who set up a spirit gathering array in the entire cultivation room, making the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the cultivation room even thicker. After rushing for more than 10 days, he didn't even take a breath when he reached the Royal New Show Hall. Until now, Chen Hao finally had some time for himself. Phew! The moment he entered the room, Chen Hao let out a long sigh of relief. After locking the door, he looked back and forth, then walked directly into the bathroom. The bathtub wasn't big, just enough to accommodate one person lying down. It was made of sparkling white jade. After opening the valve, hot spring water poured into the bathtub with a faint medicinal fragrance. Obviously, this spring water had been added with precious herbs, and it was definitely many times better than the Shao family's bathhouse. In a short moment, the bathtub was filled to the brim. This is the benefit of joining a big power. Chen Hao sighed in admiration as he closed the valve, then quickly stripped naked and soaked in the bathtub. Soaking in the bath, thinking. This was his habit in the past. But now, Chen Hao needed to organize his thoughts. In a new environment, there were many geniuses and experts, and his cultivation level was really too low. Otherwise, when he first met Dongfang Jun, with Chen Hao's character, it would definitely not have ended up like that. He needed to come up with a new plan to quickly improve himself. Second update. Please recommend me, please add me. Thank you. Chapter 74. While the Emperor-level disciples had all received their trial missions and started their real life in the Imperial family's new beauty hall, Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Moue, and the other 2 people who had yet to reach the martial Emperor level were immersed in closed-door cultivation, Chen Hao's life became extremely simple. He did not leave the house, and other than cultivating, he cultivated. Other than practicing carving for 2 hours every day, he spent the rest of his time cultivating longevity art and Refinement Spirit Heart Sutra. Refinement Spirit Heart Sutra was imparted to him by Feng Yuan to Li Ran, and had 9 layers. Although Chen Hao already knew the cultivation method, it was only now that he calmed down and started cultivating. What made him gratified was that the situation that Feng Yuan and Li Ran were worried about did not occur. There was not the slightest bit of conflict in the refinement of spirit power and elemental energy. Moreover, what surprised Chen Hao even more was that the speed of his cultivation of the Heart Sutra was much faster than when he had just started cultivating the secret of longevity. In just 20 days, he had been promoted to a level 3 elemental master, catching up to his own realm of martial arts. Of course, Chen Hao had also heard from Li Ran that his innate spirit power had reached willpower master realm. Otherwise he would not have advanced so quickly. Inside the cultivation room. At this moment, Chen Hao was sitting cross-legged. The elemental energy in his dantian was surging violently, and his body was shining with a bright red light. Faintly, one could hear deep rumbling sounds coming from his dantian qi. It was continuous, like raging waves crashing against the shore. If an expert was present, their eyeballs would fall to the ground from shock. Because the crimson elemental energy on Chen Hao's body would occasionally change color in an extremely strange manner. It was not a change in color, but a complete change in color. This was absolutely an inconceivable thing. Below martial saint, once a martial artist of any rank stepped into that rank, their elemental energy would be the same color. The only difference was the depth. For example, a 9th grade martial master could use his elemental energy to change its color from light red to peak crimson red. This was his limit. In other words, if a 9th grade martial master wanted to hide his strength, he could at most make others think that he was a 1st grade martial master, but he would not be willing to become a green elemental warrior. However, at this moment, Chen Hao's crimson elemental energy would occasionally change its color from white, yellow, green, purple, brown, blue, and even black, which was not there at all, would appear strangely. What kind of concept was this? This was an ability that only martial saints with rainbow elemental energy could freely change their elemental energy. Huff! Chen Hao exhaled deeply and slowly opened his eyes. 2 resplendent rays of light flashed before disappearing. His eyes contained a trace of excitement as he thought to himself, to think that dual cultivation of martial and intent would have such an amazing ability. In the future, won't I be able to disguise myself as anyone below the martial saint realm? Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, pretending to be a tiger to scare people? This is simply too satisfying. After an entire month of bitter cultivation, Chen Hao had used up all of his spiritual medicine savings. His martial cultivation was extremely heaven-defying, reaching the peak of 9th grade martial master. His intent cultivation had also soared to 7th grade intent master. Intent, within the intent master realm, was unable to display the strength of an intent master. Against a martial master of the same realm, the chances of victory were extremely low. However, today, Chen Hao had a sudden inspiration. After carefully combining his mental energy and elemental energy, he actually discovered such an awesome ability. This ability was not as simple as pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, or pretending to be a tiger to scare people. With the combination of 2 types of energy, Chen Hao could be sure that his strength had more than doubled. Especially in the area of elemental energy control, because of his mental energy, it could definitely be considered to have reached the realm of minute details. Chen Hao suddenly slapped out with his palm, and a surging crimson-red origin energy instantly shot out violently. But just as it was about to bombard the wall, it dispersed into numerous origin energy light ribbons with a whoosh, and like a gentle breeze, they suddenly brushed past the wall and turned 180 degrees, gently drifting together. Just at this moment, a bright light flashed between Chen Hao's brows, and the crimson-red origin energy once again violently blasted out a distance of 3 meters before slowly dissipating. Amazing! Chen Hao could not help but praise himself. This kind of elemental energy control that had reached the realm of minute details with his mental energy could definitely be used to the pinnacle of ancient Chinese martial arts. Whoosh! At this moment, the dagger in Chen Hao's hand flashed. The small dagger that his father had given him for carving immediately flashed with crimson elemental energy and flew out as fast as lightning. Hiss! The same shocking scene appeared. The flying dagger actually did not fly in a straight line. Instead, it drew several arcs and spun in the training room. Before it ran out of energy, it returned to Chen Hao's hand. The legendary Xiao Li's flying dagger. I actually managed to master it? Chen Hao's figure was filled with extreme excitement as he trembled slightly. He was very clear that if he were to use the ultimate flying dagger technique now, it would definitely not be as simple as the Xiao Li's flying dagger. With his astonishing vision, perception, and meticulous control of elemental energy, who in the same realm as him would be able to dodge his flying dagger? Moreover, with the increase in his mental energy, Chen Hao did not need to use the moment of inertia to throw the dagger. With a slight thought, he could change the direction of the flying dagger at will and use his mental energy to push it to the highest speed possible. 1 month, only 1 month. Although Chen Hao was only a 9th-grade martial master, he believed that he definitely had the ability to defeat multiple martial kings. Bang, bang, bang. Just as Chen Hao was feeling excited, there was suddenly a heavy knock on the door. Although the soundproofing in the training room was superb, Chen Hao, who was no longer in the state of cultivation, heard it clearly with his keen perception. His figure swayed and he walked out of the training room. After sensing the aura of the person at the door, Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly, revealing a devilish smile. He said in a low voice, "You really came at the right time. Looks like you've been promoted to Martial King, umph?" The instant Chen Hao opened the door, an absolutely beautiful and graceful yet ice-cold figure appeared before Chen Hao's eyes. Although Helian Wuzi's expression was ice-cold, her pair of absolutely beautiful eyes contained a trace of complacency that couldn't be concealed. Her delicate chin was slightly raised, and she coldly snorted at Chen Hao. "What? Have you advanced to the martial emperor realm?" Chen Hao smiled and asked calmly. "What do you think? Looking at your proud look, it should be. However, I advise you to go back. Some debts, you will never be able to pay them back. You will only sink deeper and deeper. Don't scare me." Helian Wuzi raised her hand and pushed away Chen Hao, who was blocking the door. She directly walked towards Chen Hao's training room. Chen Hao shrugged and looked at the graceful figure. He seemed to shake his head helplessly and followed her in. Bang! Chen Hao closed the thick and heavy door of the training room, as if there was no pressure at all. He looked straight at Helian Wuzi and approached her. Helian Wuzi, who was originally full of confidence, saw the door of the training room close. Especially when she looked at the indifferent Chen Hao who was approaching her, she didn't know why, but she actually felt like a lamb entering the tiger's mouth. Especially when she thought of Chen Hao's shameless martial arts, a trace of panic arose in her heart. P.S. Thank you to Qin Yu, Passionate Love, Chuan Liang Wuzi, Emo Xie, Feng Bai, and Ziru for their tips yesterday. Thank you. Please collect, please recommend. Chapter 75. Please add, recommend. Thank you. What do you want to do? Helian Wuzi couldn't help but ask in a moment of desperation. After she finished speaking, even she herself was stunned. What do I want to do? Don't you want a debt? Come, let me see how strong you are as a martial emperor. By the way, don't casually walk into a man's room in the future, especially this kind of sealed cultivation room. Not everyone is a gentleman like me. You. Chen Hao's indifferent and calm tone caused Helian Wuzi's anger to once again attack her heart. Honorable gentleman? Which gentleman would use that kind of shameless technique on a young girl in front of everyone? Using that shameless technique was one thing, but why did he have to do it at her own place? Boom. Boundless and terrifying light brown essence power, mixed with an incomparably icy aura, directly surged out from Helian Wuzi's body. Not giving Chen Hao the chance to react, this girl shouted delicately and struck out with her palm. There was no other way. If she let Chen Hao continue speaking, Helian Wuzi was afraid that she would be angered to death by Chen Hao before the battle even started. Boom. The corner of Chen Hao's mouth hooked up into a devilishly charming smile, as if he'd long anticipated that Helian Wuzi would make a move. A similarly light brown essence force suddenly exploded from his body, and a palm met the attack. Bang! The two people's palms collided, and a dull explosion sounded. Their bodies immediately separated. How is this possible? Helian Wuzi stopped in shock. She stared at the light brown energy on Chen Hao's body, and her expression became extremely interesting. Everything is possible. Do you still want to fight? Even if I don't use that technique, I'm afraid you can't do it either. If you use it, you'll definitely lose. Chen Hao withdrew the disguised energy and said. The reason for the disguise was firstly because Chen Hao, who had exhausted all his spiritual pills, needed to start the real cultivation in the Royal Nusho Hall as soon as possible. Secondly, he wanted to test the strength of this disguised martial emperor on Helian Wuzi. The result was very good. A first-grade martial emperor with the disguise of mental power, in terms of pure origin power, was not inferior to Helian Wuzi in the slightest. In fact, it was even stronger. Staring blankly at Chen Hao, at this moment, Helian Wuzi truly felt that in this lifetime, she was afraid that she would never have the opportunity to seek justice from Chen Hao. The reason why she had come looking for Chen Hao as soon as she had become a martial emperor was because she had long realized how abnormal Chen Hao was. The longer she waited, the slimmer her chances were. Taking advantage of the fact that she had become a martial emperor was her only chance to defeat Chen Hao, but now, even this opportunity had been obliterated. But what was strange was that Helian Wuzi, who wholeheartedly wanted to violently beat up Chen Hao, who had humiliated her at this time, clearly lost all hope, but she didn't feel too sad. Instead, she had a trace of faint joy for Chen Hao. This strange feeling caused Helian Wuzi, who was staring blankly at Chen Hao, to hurriedly avoid Chen Hao's gaze. She stubbornly said, "One day I will. I will." Halfway through her words, she felt guilty and couldn't continue. Her face was red as she said, "Let me go. Did I stop you?" Chen Hao spread out his hands as a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. "You're a bastard." Helian Wuzi pushed Chen Hao away. She was so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She frantically opened the door of the cultivation room and rushed out of Chen Hao's room. A bastard? Chen Hao shrugged as a wisp of a smile appeared on his face, and he muttered to himself, "Looks like everyone has overlooked my age, including myself, Brother Chen." At this moment, Mo Yui's shout came from outside the door. Could it be that Mo Yui has also broken through to Martial Emperor? Chen Hao was slightly surprised. Mo Yui was one grade lower than Helian Wuzi. Helian Wuzi had just broken through. How could Mo Yui be so fast? Helian Wuzi had just rushed out of Chen Hao's room and didn't even close the door. When Mo Yui came out of his room, he also saw Helian Wuzi. However, after Helian Wuzi saw him, she ran even faster. She seemed to be blushing and directly went into his room. This made Mo Yui very surprised. "You've broken through to Martial Emperor?" Seeing Mo Yui directly walk into the room, Chen Hao asked. "No. I just broke through to 9th grade Martial Master. With the help of sufficient elixirs, it shouldn't take long for me to break through." "Then why did you come out?" Chen Hao asked. "Today is the day to receive basic benefits. Brother Chen should come out." Mo Yui stared at Chen Hao with burning eyes. He opened his mouth and seemed to be a little embarrassed. "If you have something to say, say it." "I need to fight with a sword with you. However, I'm afraid that I'll delay your cultivation, So I want to take advantage of today's time to receive the elixirs and ask Brother Chen to fight with me. If you want to fight, come find me at any time. That girl has broken through to Martial Emperor. I'm also considered as one. You're the only one left. Chen Hao said without hesitation. Mo Yui was inexplicably shocked by Chen Hao's words, but then he understood. Chen Hao was able to cultivate for half a year and advance from an ordinary person to a martial master. Was it strange for him to advance from a 5th-grade martial master to a martial emperor in a month? Furthermore, he had sufficient elixirs to support him. As for Helian Wuzi's advancement to martial emperor, Mo Yui wasn't surprised. At this moment, thinking of Helian Wuzi's appearance just now, it was obvious that she had been humiliated by Chen Hao again. I'll do it as soon as possible. Mo Yui took a deep breath and said, Go and call that girl out. Let's go together. Next, she and I will help you cultivate. When you break through, we'll officially start the mission. Chen Hao said, Good. Thank you, Brother Chen. Mo Yui's eyes flashed with gratitude as he said in a deep voice, The 3 of you have to move quickly. Chen Si and Xiao He both advanced to Martial Emperor a few days ago. Among the disciples of Cold Moon Hall, only the 3 of you are left. The longer you delay, the greater the gap between you and the others. Relying on these basic benefits won't be of much use. You're not qualified to enter the unique study library. When Chen Hao and the other 2 received the basic benefits for this month, the general manager of Cold Moon Hall, who was in charge of the assessment and distribution of the benefits, gave them the elixirs and warned them. Thank you for reminding us. We'll do it as soon as possible. Chen Hao said respectfully. When he saw the general manager looking at Helian Wuzi with slight disappointment, Chen Hao frowned slightly and continued, Xiao Wu has already broken through to Martial Emperor. After Xiao Mo and I break through, we can start the trial. There shouldn't be a problem this month. Oh. Hearing Chen Hao's words, the general manager's expression changed slightly. He said, That's good. The barrier of Martial Master shouldn't be much of a barrier for the disciples of New Shou Hall. The cultivation room we spent a lot of money to condense is not just a simple condensation of the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. It also has the spiritual imprint of a super expert. It will be of great benefit for you to comprehend the barrier. Go. If you can break through within a month, you'll be able to make it in time for the trial in Xianhuang Ancient City? Yes, thank you, General Manager. The 3 cupped their fists and said respectfully. After saying that, they quickly left. After watching the 3 of them leave, the general manager smiled and said, This little guy's comprehension is really good. It seems that he will be able to advance to Martial Emperor within a month. From a 5th-grade Martial Master to Martial Emperor, 2 months. It's even faster than Brother Huang Qi's estimate. It's said that this little guy's combat strength is very high. It seems that it's true. The 3 of them obviously treat him as the core. Without strength, how can he convince the other 2? P.S. 1 week has passed. The next chapter will be updated at midnight tonight. Brothers and sisters, please log on to the starting point and support Wushan. Thank you. Please collect it. Chapter 76. First update, please click, recommend, bookmark. Next, under the guidance of Chen Hao, they began a cultivation method that made Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui suffer unbearably. It was too horrible to look at, but it also made them incomparably shocked and inexplicably excited. It was also at this time that the 2 of them truly realized how terrifying and abnormal Chen Hao was. At the same time, they also deeply felt the gap between themselves and Chen Hao, crazy abnormal. Only these 4 words could describe the intensity of cultivation under Chen Hao's pressure in just half a month. There was not even a moment of rest. Meditating and cultivating was the only way for the 2 of them to rest. Once they recovered their strength and spirit, Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui would face all kinds of terrifying attacks from Chen Hao. Sometimes it was simple and direct, sometimes it was strange and ever-changing, sometimes it was watertight, and sometimes it was a direct attack aimed at the flaws. Every battle could make Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui tremble with fear, but the harvest every time was also huge. Chen Hao basically did not explain anything to the 2 of them, and also did not say much. The two of them knew in their hearts that Chen Hao was sacrificing time for them, wholeheartedly improving their battle strength. Mo Yui was very grateful and also really admired Chen Hao, but although Helian Wuzi clearly knew that Chen Hao was helping her, and she was also grateful deep in her heart, but every time she fought with Chen Hao, she would be angered by Chen Hao, because Chen Hao did not treat her as a woman at all. In Chen Hao's words, the enemy did not distinguish between men and women. If she still treated herself as a woman, then she would give the enemy all kinds of means to kill her, especially when facing a shameless and wretched enemy. What made Helian Wuzi even more ashamed and resentful was that Chen Hao also said the real reason why she lost to Chen Hao in the Yunzhou martial competition. Chen Hao had used the Dragon Claw to take advantage of her physical and psychological weaknesses. If she had let go of her modesty and shyness at that time and not treated herself as a woman and showed the coldness and heartlessness that she should have, the one who would have lost would have been Chen Hao. During this period of battle, Chen Hao not only fought her with his powerful strength, but also used extremely shameless and wretched fighting methods from time to time. He even blatantly teased her. How could Helian Wuzi not be angry? However, Helian Wuzi didn't know that Chen Hao was indeed thinking for her. Femme fatale, Helian Wuzi's exceptional beauty was destined to encounter all kinds of shameless people like Dongfang Zan and Dongfang Jun. However, since she was bound to Chen Hao's small team and Chen Hao had acknowledged her, she could only improve and change her. He had to have the unique skills and mentality to fend off perverts. Chen Hao's goal was to let Helian Wuzi, as a woman, not become her weakness and flaw when facing shameless enemies. Of course, during this period of cultivation, Chen Hao didn't completely sacrifice his time for Mo Yui and Helian Wuzi like he did for them. He was also familiarizing himself with the combination of his willpower and martial arts through fighting with the two of them, as well as the combination and application of his own martial arts skills. 20 days later, under the torture of Chen Hao's high-pressure destructive method, Mo Yui finally stepped into the martial emperor realm beyond expectations. After Chen Hao borrowed most of the remaining elixirs from Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, he also truly stepped into the martial emperor realm. The battle strength of the three people had an astonishing increase in a short period of 20 days. Chen Hao believed that at the same level, at least no one would be able to take advantage of Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui with their moves. As for Helian Wuzi, although she was still angry under Chen Hao's wretched and shameless attacks, it had to be said that if she met such a pervert with such wretched methods, her anger would no longer be in panic, but would be turned into a more violent and powerful attack. Similarly, although Chen Hao had never fought with a martial emperor realm expert before, he was confident that he could fight with a high-level martial emperor. After Mo Yui's advancement, the three of them went through the test together and finally became the junior disciples of Cold Moon Hall, obtaining the qualification for the trial. The Royal New Show Hall was divided into junior disciples, intermediate disciples, and high-level disciples. These three ranks had nothing to do with one's strength, but the number of years they had been in the sect. Those who had been in the sect for 2 years were junior disciples, those who had been in the sect for 4 years were intermediate disciples, and those who had been in the sect for 6 years were high-level disciples. Any disciple could only stay in the Royal New Show Hall for 6 years. After 6 years, they would leave the Royal New Show Hall. As for where they would go, it would depend on their strength after 6 years. Chen Hao and the other two could only wait for the next mission to start the trial. A few days later, the first trial, which had lasted for nearly 2 months, finally ended. The new disciples of the 3 halls returned one after another. Some were dejected, some had gained a lot, and some had even lost their lives in the trial. For a moment, the originally quiet dormitory area became lively. Small groups of 3 to 5 people were discussing who had gained the most this time, who was the unluckiest, and so on. Dongfang Jun's name from the Dongfang family was undoubtedly the most frequently mentioned name in Cold Moon Hall. Although Chen Hao and the other two hadn't started the trial, they had some understanding of the Royal New Show Hall's trial through the information that Huang Qi and the others had just received. When Huang Qi had first mentioned it, Chen Hao had been looking forward to it. Now, the disciples who had returned from the trial in less than 2 months had made Chen Hao even more excited. There were still a few days before he, Helian Woozy and Moue would start the real trial. Hiss hiss hiss. Chen Hao's body and mind were completely immersed in a wonderful state. It was as if Chen Hao had merged with the thick, 3-foot-long wooden stick in his hand, which was several times harder than sandalwood and was known as steel wood. He could clearly feel the fine veins on the stick. The rapidly flashing blade gleam didn't have a trace of elemental energy, but it easily swam through these extremely fine veins. Along with the fine wood shavings, the shape of the wooden stick rapidly changed. The highest level of carving skills is to carve everything in the world. When there is no longer anything that cannot be carved under your blade, that is when the carving skill has reached great success. Chen Hao recalled the words that his father had once said to him. Originally, he didn't refute, but he didn't agree with those words at all. In his opinion, his father was only exaggerating. The blade was only an ordinary blade. Furthermore, it couldn't use any elemental energy, so how could it carve everything in the world? Trees were already the limit, right? At that time, Chen Hao thought so. At least in his opinion, rocks, steel, and various hard ores couldn't be carved using this method. At least, it required the support of powerful elemental energy or mental energy. But now, Chen Hao, in this wonderful state, suddenly realized that what his father had said might be true. Because Chen Hao already understood that this wasn't just a simple carving skill, but a kind of supreme technique that merged with everything and used the life source of all things to comprehend the great Tao. Every time Chen Hao controlled the veins of an object, it was as if he had touched the origin of this object. Some mysterious heavenly Tao insights that had the unique aura of this object would appear in his mind. At that time, under his blade, this object would be like tofu. Hiss, hiss, hiss. When the last piece of wood fell from Chen Hao's hand, a steel-wood sword faintly emitting a metallic luster appeared in Chen Hao's hand. The body of the sword was smooth and exquisite, and there wasn't the slightest trace of carving. It was like a naturally grown wooden sword, giving people a feeling that it was made by nature. Ding! His fingertips lightly flicked the sword body, and it actually produced a crisp sword sound. Chen Hao's face revealed a satisfied smile. Dong, dong, dong. At this moment, there was a heavy and hurried knock on the door, which destroyed Chen Hao's wonderful state of mind. His brows immediately furrowed. Moue and Helian Woozy definitely wouldn't knock on the door so arrogantly. Chen Hao, open the door, open the door. I'm Dongfang family's Dongfang Ying. Our eldest Dongfang Jun invites you in. A domineering voice sounded. Chen Hao's eyes shone with a fierce light. His expression was cold as he walked to the door and suddenly opened it. I heard that you, Moue, and our future sister-in-law Xiao Wu have all stepped into the martial emperor realm. Our eldest Dongfang has considered for you and specially invited you to join our team to gain experience together. P.S. In the new week, please log on to Qidian and give me your recommendation. Thank you. Thank you to Chuan Liangwizi, Low-Key Brat, Shu Linfei, Moue, Passionate Love Carrot, for the 5 friends rewards and support. The second update will probably be around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. These few days I've been coughing badly. If I don't smoke, I won't be able to sit still. Smoking already causes me to cough to death. It's really painful. Chapter 77. Second update, please recommend it. Thank you, boy. Sister-in-law Xiao Wu said that you are their boss, as long as you agree. What? You don't want to agree? Don't regret it, this is a great thing for you. Others beg to join us, but our boss doesn't care. With our boss, I guarantee that you will reap a lot, and no one will dare to bully you. You have to think carefully, our boss's temper is not good. Seeing that Chen Hao was only staring coldly at Dongfang Jun standing behind them, another person said arrogantly. The first person this group of guys knocked on the door was naturally Helian Woozy, but Helian Woozy didn't open the door at all, and pushed it to Chen Hao, saying that Chen Hao was her and Moue's boss. My temper is also not good. Chen Hao, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said coldly at this moment. What did you say? Hearing Chen Hao's words, a guy suddenly pointed at Chen Hao's nose and shouted. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit? Another guy looked at Chen Hao full of ridicule, smiled slightly and said, It seems that you, boy, are interested in Hellion Woozy? I advise you to give up. What qualifications do you have to fight for the woman that my boss likes? You have to think carefully, give up on her, persuade her to join us, there will be plenty of benefits for you. Don't joke with your life and future for a woman, our boss has always done things neatly. When these guys knocked on Chen Hao's door, Hellion Woozy was already standing at the window of her room. The reason why she pushed it to Chen Hao was not that she was afraid of Dongfang Jun and the others, but that Chen Hao had told them when the new batch of disciples had just returned from their experience. It seemed that Chen Hao had long expected that Dongfang Jun and the others would come. Is that so? I never joke with my life and future, and I do things neatly. That's good. A wise man submits to circumstances. Hearing Chen Hao's words, the guy's mocking expression suddenly eased slightly, interrupted Chen Hao, and laughed wildly. But I disdain associating with pigs and dogs even more. You can leave now. Chen Hao had never seen Lei Feng so stupid. Were his eyes just for show? Can't you see the disdain and contempt in my eyes? What did you say? The guy's laughter suddenly froze as he stared at Chen Hao and fiercely said, "Fuck your mother, do you want to die? How dare you call us?" Chen Hao didn't show any signs, and there wasn't even the slightest fluctuation of elemental energy around his body. However, the ironwood sword in his hand that had just been completed was as fast as lightning, silently slicing through the air. An icy cold aura directly caused the two fellows to widen their eyes in horror. They were so shocked that they broke out in cold sweat. Their voices also stopped abruptly. The icy cold aura on their necks and the slight piercing pain caused their souls to leave their bodies. Scram! Chen Hao coldly spat out a word. Hearing Chen Hao's words, the two fellows came back to their senses. Thump, 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 they continuously retreated a few steps. Their faces were immediately filled with boundless anger. They pointed at Chen Hao from afar and hooted, "Good, good, good, you have guts. You've just stepped into rank 1 martial monarch. I want to see how long you can be arrogant for. Unless you're a coward and hide when you see me, let's go." Although the two of them spoke fiercely, they still had lingering fear in their hearts. Even though they were both rank 4 martial monarchs, at this moment, they didn't dare to fight with Chen Hao at all. Moreover, if they were to fight in Chen Hao's dormitory, the rules of the new show hall didn't allow it. After a moment, Hellion Woozy arrived in front of Chen Hao. She looked at Chen Hao, not knowing what to say. "There's no choice." Chen Hao directly said, "When dealing with this kind of person, the more you retreat, the more arrogant they become. Unless you choose to submit, will you?" I said that you're a femme fatale. There will be a lot of troublesome things in the future." Chen Hao shook his head and said, "Then don't bother about me." "Do I need you to bother about me?" Hellion Woozy was a little grateful just now, but Chen Hao's words immediately made her seethe with anger. Her ice-cold and beautiful little face trembled. At the same time, her heart also trembled. An indescribable feeling of grievance lingered in her heart, even surpassing anger. Chen Hao stared at Hellion Woozy's strange expression. He rubbed his nose as if he was a little embarrassed and said, "I'm just speaking the truth. It's not your fault that you're beautiful. If I didn't know you, naturally I wouldn't bother about you. No matter how beautiful you are, I would hide far away. However, since we're a team, there's no way out. I, Chen Hao, am also not a person who's afraid of trouble. I'll leave your team. Don't bother about me." Hellion Woozy felt that her self-esteem had suffered an extreme blow, and said with a trembling voice. After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave, but she was pulled back by Chen Hao. "What are you doing?" Hellion Woozy struggled and said angrily to Chen Hao. "Little Wu, I'll say it again. Don't treat yourself as a woman in front of me. You and Xiaomo are my partners, so I'm telling you this. I'm not saying that you're a burden and trouble. I just want to tell you that if you have a beautiful face, you must have the strength to match it. Otherwise, one day, you will succumb to someone's despotic power. The Hellion family forced an engagement and you had no choice but to give in. Now, without our small team, how will you deal with Dongfang Jun's harassment? You can only endure, feign civility, or give in. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to move forward. Chen Hao's eyes were clear, but he said seriously. Helian Wuzi was stunned and speechless. Strength is everything. I don't care if you like to hear it or not, or if you can listen, but I still have to tell you. This is for your own good. We don't have anyone to rely on. We can only rely on ourselves. Go and cultivate. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he let go of Helian Wuzi's arm. I want to fight. Fighting also requires a calm heart, Chen Hao said as he walked into the room and closed the door directly. Helian Wuzi was in a daze for a few seconds. Then, she stomped her feet and quickly returned to her room. This trial is in the Xianhuang ancient city. I believe you already know the basic situation. Old Man emphasized again that the Xianhuang ancient city is one of the most valuable relics in the Jinyuan kingdom. Especially for cultivators in the emperor stage, it is an excellent opportunity for cultivation. There is only one chance to open it every year, and each of you only has one chance to enter. The demonic beasts inside lurk in the day and come out at night. The strongest demonic beast is at the 9th grade emperor stage. There are few of them, but you must be careful. I don't want anyone to die. Remember, the most important purpose of the trial in the Xianhuang ancient city is to comprehend the 5-star spiritual route. How much you can comprehend depends on you. If you can't comprehend it, kill the demonic beasts. The number of demonic beasts' inner cores obtained will be the basis for evaluating your welfare level. By the way, no matter how you fight, if you kill someone, you have to pay with your life. Let's go. At this moment, the new disciples of the 3 halls were all gathered at the top of the Spirit Gathering Peak, the main peak of the Royal New Show Hall. In the middle of the peak, a mysterious and huge ancient magic array exuded a mysterious, simple, and magnificent aura, as if it was slowly rotating with the rotation of the sun, the moon, and the stars. With the order of the Deputy Hall Master of the Royal New Show Hall, the 8 masters who had been standing in 8 directions of the ancient magic array immediately gathered their energy and poured it into the ancient magic array at the same time. At this moment, mysterious rays of light suddenly condensed into a huge pillar of light that soared into the sky. P.S. The third update is about 7 p.m. Friends who have finished reading it, please help to bookmark and recommend it. My new book needs your support. Thank you very much. Chapter 78. Although the other disciples who had tried it before were still surprised when they saw it again, they were relatively better off. However, Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Moue, and the other disciples who had just reached the emperor level and saw this ancient array for the first time were all extremely shocked. This mysterious and ancient array was a teleportation array that ordinary people could not see at all. Only the legendary god-level experts who could turn the 5 elements and reverse yin and yang could refine this kind of teleportation array that transcended the 5 elements, twisted the universe, and turned heaven and earth into a square inch. Chen Hao had been in the Royal New Show Hall for 2 months. Although he had basically been cultivating in seclusion, he had a deeper understanding of the cultivation world. What did it mean to call the Royal New Show Hall as a rookie? If there were rookies, there would naturally be elites and higher-level existences. The highest realm of the Royal New Show Hall Master and Deputy Hall Master was the peak of Martial Sage. They had not reached the martial god realm of yin-yang transformation. However, the Royal New Show Hall had a teleportation array. In fact, Chen Hao had long realized that the Jinyuan kingdom was just a small kingdom in the vast and boundless land. Now it was still the sky, to him. It was a tall mountain that blocked his vision. Outside of this sky, there must be an even more powerful and exciting world. Whoosh, 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 figures rushed into the teleportation array one after another. Every team was tightly pulled together. The moment they entered the teleportation array, it was as if the space would distort and they would disappear instantly. Let's go! Seeing that more than half of the people had disappeared, Chen Hao took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. As he spoke, he stretched out his hands. His left hand held Helian Wuzi's soft little hand tightly, and his right hand held Moue's tightly. Hiss, hiss. On the contrary, Chen Hao and Moue didn't have any reaction. However, the hands that were tightly clasped together with Helian Wuzi, Because the two of them were simultaneously gathering energy, unexpectedly emitted the sound of electric arcs. This was definitely not because there was something between the two of them. Especially Chen Hao, there was absolutely nothing between them. Chen Hao had to admit that Helian Wuzi's small hand felt very good when he held it. It was soft, tender, small, cool, a very comfortable feeling. But that was all. However, this numbness that felt as if electricity had passed through his body was real. The reason was that the water and ice energy that they had comprehended because of each other actually produced a trace of fusion. This made the two of them were shocked at the same time. They looked at each other. Helian Wuzi only took a glance, and then turned her ice-cold, beautiful little face to the side. She seemed a little shy. There was no time to think. The instant the three of them charged into the teleportation array, a mysterious energy enveloped them. Chen Hao only felt a strong light flash before his eyes as his surroundings began to distort. By the time he regained his vision, an ancient aura had already assaulted him. The scene before him had already changed completely. The cold wind whistled and snow flew all over the sky. The ground, mountains, and trees were enveloped beneath a thick layer of snow, causing the heavens and the earth to be covered in a vast expanse of whiteness, and it was filled with an ancient, desolate, icy cold, and holy aura. With a single glance, the shadow of an enormous and ancient city could be faintly seen in the distance, and because it was too far away, it was like a mirage, indistinct, and illusory. Kikik Moue, who did not have time to gather energy, was the first to shiver. His teeth chattered as he said, "So cold, the city in the distance should be the Xianhuang ancient city. The reason why we were teleported here is probably because Xiao Wu and I have already comprehended the mysterious ice chi. If you can endure it, then endure it. If you can't endure it, then gather your yuan chi to protect yourself," Chen Hao said to Moue. After a slight pause, he continued, "Let's go. There should be demonic beasts hidden in this ice and snow. If we can discover them, then we'll kill them." Chen Hao let go of the hands of the two. His figure flashed, and he took the lead in the direction of the ancient city in the distance. The level and quantity of demon beasts' inner cores was the standard to evaluate the level of welfare. Comprehending the 5 elements of spiritual roots was important, but hunting demon beasts was equally important. After all, this was a major matter related to the level of welfare. Especially for a fellow like Chen Hao who consumed a terrifying amount of medicinal pills compared to an ordinary person, it was extremely necessary. In these 2 months of cultivation, Chen Hao was sure that the guy in his mind did not cause any trouble. During this time, Chen Hao also called out several times, but there was no response. Chen Hao knew what was going on. Back then, when he used the excuse of taking a dump as an excuse, he encountered a mysterious scene. According to the old man, it should be a place where an ancient expert once practiced cultivation. It had been unused for a long time, and after a long time, a large amount of spiritual chi of heaven and earth had been condensed on the enormous spirit-gathering stone. It was precisely because the existence in his mind had absorbed the world energy that it truly awakened, and was able to communicate with Chen Hao. Moreover, even though that guy was old and a bit arrogant, it seemed that he did not dare to go against Chen Hao's wishes. It was precisely because of this that there was this spirit lock bewitching array that Huang Qi spoke of. Of course, the spirit lock bewitching array was also built on the foundation of the original array. Otherwise, the old guy who had just awakened wouldn't have the energy to set it up. Even so, the consumption was rather large, and he had no choice but to sink into a deep level of cultivation to nourish himself. The 3 of them braved the sky full of flying snow and quickly advanced. Even though Moue had activated his yuan power, it was only used to run. He did not rely on yuan power to resist the cold. During this period of contact, he firmly believed in Chen Hao's words. Since Chen Hao told him to endure, then naturally there was a reason to endure. Therefore, even though this guy's teeth were chattering from the cold, he still persisted. As for Chen Hao and Helian Wuzi, although they felt the cold, because the 2 of them had comprehended the profound ice energy, it did not affect them much. From afar, Chen Hao and the other 2 could see small groups rapidly approaching Xianhuang ancient city. However, they did not discover a single monstrous beast. Fuck. This is too fucking hot. Fire. Boss, among us, you're definitely the one with the most hope of comprehending the fire attribute spirit root, ha. Of course, it's definitely boss. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been teleported here. That brat has relaxed a bit for the time being. Sister-in-law Xiao Wu has already comprehended the profound ice energy. They should have been teleported to the ice attribute area. No matter. Unless they don't enter Xianhuang Ancient City. Let's go, we'll increase our speed and try to reach the ancient city before them. We'll be able to wait for them at the northern gate. That brat has truly eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts to challenge this young master. The two of you are truly trash, actually being toyed with by a mere rank 1 martial monarch. The person who spoke was the publicly acknowledged #1 expert of the Cold Moon Hall's new disciples, Dongfang Jun. In the previous trial, he was ranked first in the Cold Moon Hall. He was second only to the Fierce Sun Hall's rank 1 martial emperor, Zhao Yunfei. Requesting collection and recommendation, thank you. Chapter 79. Cough cough. Boss, you don't know. That brat sword skill is extremely strange. It doesn't have any energy fluctuation and it's very fast. So fast that the two of us didn't even have time to react. We were hit almost at the same time. One of the guys whose neck was cut by Chen Hao still had lingering fear as he spoke. He was very clear that if Chen Hao had killed him at that time, he might not even know how he died. He had never heard of such a strange sword skill before. But the most important thing is that we weren't mentally prepared at that time. We didn't think that brat would dare to make a move. Otherwise, he wouldn't have succeeded. If I meet him this time, I will definitely trample him to death. When the time comes, you just have to watch. This young master will make the three of them beg me. Only 3 first-grade martial kings. The demonic beasts of Xianhuang Ancient City aren't something they can resist. We only need to make a few simple movements and this young master will be a hero saving the beauty. After Dongfang Jun finished speaking, he laughed and took the lead to turn into a ray of light. The 4 of them rushed towards Xianhuang Ancient City like lightning. Swish, swish, swish. When Chen Hao's group of 3 passed by a forest that was wrapped in silver, what made Helian Wu Zi and Moue slightly flabbergasted was that with a flash of the blade in Chen Hao's hand, a large tree fell to the ground with a rumble. Chen Hao walked closer. The blade in his hand was like a spark of electricity. With a few simple hiss sounds, that sturdy and thick tree trunk under Chen Hao's blade was like tofu. It turned into 3 strange wooden planks that were slightly raised at the front and back. In the middle, there was a bulge that was just large enough to accommodate a foot. Chen Hao, boss, what are you doing? Helian Wuzi and Moue said almost at the same time. But the way they addressed him was different. Moue's original brother Chen had now naturally become boss. And although Helian Wuzi also admitted that Chen Hao was the boss of the team, she still called him by his name. Put 1 foot in and learn how to slide. Since there are no demonic beasts, we must enter Xianhuang Ancient City with the fastest speed. Otherwise, we might be greeted by Dongfang Jun. Watch carefully. As Chen Hao spoke, he demonstrated by stepping on the newly made skateboard with 1 foot. His other foot slightly surged with origin energy as he lightly stepped on it. His entire body instantly glided forward with a slurp sound. Helian Wuzi and Moue stared blankly. If you've seen it clearly, then leave quickly. As long as you keep your balance and exert force with your right foot, your speed will become faster and faster, and it will save a lot of energy. Chen Hao stopped a few meters away and said, "All right." The 2 of them replied at the same time. It was naturally not easy for ordinary people to master Chen Hao's skiing skill in an instant. However, Helian Wuzi and Moue were both emperor-level experts. If they couldn't learn such a simple thing, they should find a piece of tofu and kill themselves. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, boom boom boom, faster faster. Following Chen Hao's words, the 3 people's right feet surged with origin energy as they continuously exerted force, causing the 3 people's speed to become faster and faster. The ground was originally covered with thick snow. Even if they were origin energy experts, they wouldn't be able to walk that fast. But now, They only needed to kick their feet at intervals, and the three people's speed soared to an astonishing level. It was no less than 4 or 5 times faster than before. In the snow, they were like 3 streams of light flashing by. An hour later, the ancient city of Xianhuang finally appeared in front of the three people. This ancient city exuded an ancient aura. It looked dilapidated and decayed, without any vitality. According to the information obtained before they came, demon beasts were nocturnal. During the day, there shouldn't be any demon beasts in the ancient city. However, when the three people entered the city, they still restrained their aura. Inside the city, it was desolate and ancient. Except for the whistling wind, it was strangely quiet, without any trace. Obviously, this abandoned ancient city ruins, except for the Royal Nusho Hall who broke the seal to come here through the teleportation array every year for trials, had been deserted for countless years. Even though it was daytime, it still made people feel a gloomy and desolate aura. The whistling whirlwind increased the gloomy atmosphere even more. Let's go to the center of the city to find a place. Chen Hao's incomparably sharp perception had already spread out. He didn't sense any life aura, but a trace of danger pervaded the air. Moreover, the energy of heaven and earth in this ancient city was very different from the outside world. Although Chen Hao could only sense the water and ice attribute energy of the same origin, he knew that it contained the 5 elements spirit roots. Cultivating here would definitely have an unexpected effect on comprehending the 5 elements spirit roots. The closer to the center of the city, the higher the level of demon beasts that appeared at night. The 2 of them were clear on this point. The 3 of them were only rank 1 martial kings. Although Chen Hao's battle strength was extremely strong, what would he do if he encountered a demon beast of rank 5 martial king or above? Although Mo Yui and Helian Wuzi wanted to say something, when they saw that Chen Hao was already quickly walking towards the center of the city, they could only quickly follow. But what surprised the 2 of them was that Chen Hao only ran for a moment before suddenly stopping and frowning. What's wrong? Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui asked at the same time. But Chen Hao acted as if he didn't hear the 2 of them. His expression changed slightly and his eyes flickered. Fortunately, it was only a few seconds later before his expression returned to normal. He seemed a little excited and suddenly looked at Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, saying, "There's no need to go to the center of the city. We might be rich this time. Quick, before anyone gets close to the ancient city." As Chen Hao spoke, he actually rushed towards the city gate again, making Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui confused. They didn't know what this guy was going to do. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them arrived at the city gate again. "Jump down and follow me, quick." Chen Hao looked at the wide blood-red moat and actually said such a sentence. At the same time, with a swoosh sound, he gathered all the elemental energy in his body and plunged into the moat. Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui frowned at the same time. They looked at each other and braced themselves to jump down. Pung pung pung. 3 blood-red splashes splashed and the 3 figures suddenly jumped into the moat. The moment they entered the water, what made Chen Hao surprised was that the density of this blood-red water was surprisingly high. The 3 of them fell from high up, but they only entered half of their knees and didn't go deep. This? "Boss, what are you going to do?" Mo Yui couldn't help but ask. "I'll explain to you later. First of all, can you guys dive down?" "How can we dive? This water is very strange." Helian Wuzi frowned. At this moment she was standing in the water, and it felt like she was standing on solid ground. Apart from the slight undulation, even her knees didn't sink into the water. One could imagine how great the buoyancy was. "Forget it, that's the only way. You 2 go into the city and cultivate in the outer area near the east gate. Also, Xiaowu, you disguise yourself. Xiaoma, you disguise yourself too. Avoid Dongfang Jun and the others as much as possible. No matter how big or small the harvest is, safety first. I might come out very late, so you can only rely on yourselves for this trial. Be careful. Go quickly. If you are late, Dongfang Jun will probably reach the city gate." As Chen Hao spoke, he sent out a burst of origin energy. Immediately, he supported Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, allowing the 2 of them to take advantage of the momentum and fly high into the sky. Go. Chen Hao waved his hand. Suddenly, his aura seemed to have merged with the moat, and he dived into the water like a fish. Please add it to your collection. Recommend it? Thank you. Chapter 80. Amazing! Chen Hao's long-lost voice sounded in his mind, and even this voice could not help but exclaim in admiration. It was indeed shocking that Chen Hao could so easily dive into the incredibly dense moat without using any energy at all. Are you sure you can lock onto Xiao Wu and Murphy's aura? Don't worry. Although I'm weak right now, my senses won't weaken at all. This is my ability to make a living. Don't ask. I can't answer your questions, and I can't. Besides, communicating with you right now takes a lot of effort. The seal on that thing is too strong. Once you control it, you'll naturally understand. It's better for me to use my senses to communicate with you. When Chen Hao wanted to ask the question in his heart, another existence in his mind spoke first. After speaking, Chen Hao clearly felt that their minds were once again cut off. There was only a trace of fluctuation in his mind, just like the fluctuation that guided him forward when he encountered the elixir. Other than that, there was no other aura. That thing. What is it? Is it also something in my mind? Or is it something that sealed this old guy in it? Chen Hao secretly thought. Although the old guy did not answer his question, his words revealed a piece of information that made Chen Hao surprised and helpless. There was no doubt that the old guy was not the only one in his mind. There was a stronger existence that sealed him. If he wanted to uncover the mystery, he had to be really strong. Now it seemed that there was no hope. He could not sense any abnormalities in his mind at all, so how could he understand what was there? Temporarily suppressing the curiosity in his heart, Chen Hao relied on the fluctuations in his mind and quickly dived to the bottom of the moat. His mind was constantly sensing the changes in the pool water. Converging all his energy, he was able to swim like a fish and completely ignore such a terrifying density of the river water. This was also thanks to the carving technique taught to him by his father, which allowed him to use his body as a knife and integrate into everything in the world. At this moment, Chen Hao was like a knife in his hand, finding the life trajectory and texture of the water. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the water rippled slightly as Chen Hao dove deeper and deeper. What shocked him was that with the guidance of the fluctuations in his mind, this small moat was like a bottomless pit. After 1,000 feet, he entered an underwater cave. This cave was like a coiled dragon, twisting and turning as it went downwards, towards the city. All the pores on Chen Hao's body had been opened, and he was completely relying on the internal breathing of an expert to absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the water. At first, there was no abnormality, but after entering the underwater cave, Chen Hao was pleasantly surprised to find that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the water became thicker and thicker. This was not even cultivation, but it made Chen Hao feel as if he was cultivating. Strands of spiritual qi of heaven and earth quickly merged into his body with the breathing of his pores and gathered in his dantian. Chen Hao didn't feel any exhaustion at all. Instead, he felt more and more energetic, but when Chen Hao felt as if he was several kilometers closer to the center of the ancient city and the underground cave suddenly became several times wider, Chen Hao's body, which was swimming forward like a fish, suddenly froze. Crack, crethis. The sound of bones breaking and flesh tearing came from Chen Hao's body. The blood-red water around Chen Hao's body suddenly became deeper. That was Chen Hao's blood. Chen Hao didn't even have time to scream before an incomparably terrifying pressure pressed down on every inch of his body from all directions. Under that irresistible force, Chen Hao clearly felt that his body was collapsing inch by inch. In almost an instant, countless parts of the bones in his body were shattered. His muscles, tendons, and even every single cell felt as if they were about to be squeezed into fine powder. An indescribable pain, in an instant, almost made Chen Hao lose consciousness. If Chen Hao's current appearance was seen by Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, perhaps they would be scared to death. His body was squeezed tightly and curled up into a ball. His head, arms, legs, and body were all shrunk into a ball, badly mutilated. Could he still live? Using his body as a blade. This was originally not a problem. If it was in the outside world, no matter what kind of thing was placed in front of him, if he didn't comprehend its life origin trajectory and texture, it would be fine if he didn't use his blade. But at this moment, the essence of this mysterious and strange water suddenly changed. Chen Hao simply didn't have time to comprehend its life origin trajectory before he was caught in it. How deep was he at the bottom of the water at this moment? The density of this water was so high, what kind of terrifying pressure would it have? What's more, this extremely terrifying water pressure seemed to be filled with an even more powerful energy. Moreover, Chen Hao had converged all of his yuan qi and mental power, completely relying on the life origin trajectory and texture to move forward. Boy, wake up, wake up. Stay awake and gather your strength. The mysterious existence in Chen Hao's mind was terrified to the extreme at this moment. Even he didn't expect such a thing to happen. He only sensed that there was a winding passage under this Xianhuang ancient city that was full of dense world energy. The end of the passage was the core of the ancient city. The world energy there was even more majestic and powerful to the extreme. He was sure that there must be extremely powerful elixirs there. Because of this, he didn't hesitate to communicate with Chen Hao in a weak state and let Chen Hao enter through the entrance he sensed. But he didn't know the specific situation in the passage. When Chen Hao had just jumped into the moat, he felt that he was wrong. Because how could Chen Hao dive into such dense water? But at that time, Chen Hao gave him a surprise, using a method that he couldn't understand to easily dive into the ground. At that time, he was still pleasantly surprised. But now, he was shocked and regretful. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have let Chen Hao come. But it was too late. In a state of panic, he had to gather all of his mental power and shout in Chen Hao's mind like a morning bell. He was very clearly aware that once Chen Hao lost consciousness, then Chen Hao would stay here forever. On the other hand, the opportunity that he'd finally obtained after waiting for countless years with great difficulty would once again become a long wait, and it was very likely that it would be an even longer wait that would never see the light of day. Severe pain and the feeling of being on the verge of death instantly occupied Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao's consciousness was almost about to collapse in an instant. Without personally experiencing this kind of pain, one would never know how terrifying it was. But Chen Hao's tenacious nerves and strong will to survive made him try his best to maintain the last trace of consciousness at this moment. He didn't lose consciousness and didn't even hear the voice of the mysterious existence in his mind. Because in that instant, he already knew why he was enduring this kind of pain. Comprehension. Comprehension. Only by using the fastest speed to truly comprehend this water that had suddenly changed its nature could he capture its origin trajectory and texture. Only in this way could the terrifying pressure around him disappear. Hiss hiss hiss. Crack crack crack. The sound of tendons, bones, and even cells cracking was still ringing in Chen Hao's body. But at this moment, his mind was highly condensed. All the pain seemed to have been forcibly removed from his mind. What was left was only comprehension. Heart, and comprehension. Although it sounded long, it was actually just a short moment. But whether it was Chen Hao or the mysterious existence in his mind, this moment was as long as a century. Hiss. Finally, when Chen Hao's body was compressed to the point where it no longer resembled a human and was about to completely collapse, the terrifying pressure finally disappeared with Chen Hao's comprehension. Chen Hao's body that had shrunk into a meatball suddenly stretched out, but it was already unrecognizable. If it wasn't for the relatively tough and valiant meridians that connected it, it was likely that it would have been shattered. Similarly, if it wasn't for Chen Hao's body genes that were completely beyond the scope of a human, it was likely that he would have been completely finished. Even so, Chen Hao only had half a breath left. He had completely lost control of his heavily injured body. Almost all of his bones were broken, and countless parts of his body were torn. His organs were even crushed, and his blood was almost completely drained. Brat, persevere, persevere. You can't die. The mysterious existence shouted again and again. I can't die. I definitely won't die. Chen Hao's remaining consciousness was completely locked onto this comprehension, and he spoke with incomparable determination in his heart. He couldn't control his body, But at this moment, he split a part of his mind to absorb the thick spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the water and fight against the Grim Reaper. P.S. Please recommend us. Please support Dark Mountain. We really don't have enough recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 81. Indescribable pain continuously assaulted him like waves. Chen Hao not only had to resist this pain that almost drowned him, but he also had to lock onto the origin trajectory and texture of the pool water. He also had to use the remaining bit of consciousness in his body to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the pool water to heal himself. If any of the three parts went wrong, it would mean that Chen Hao would lose his life here. In fact, if it wasn't for Chen Hao's abnormal physique, Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui would have already died. However, Chen Hao's body, which was no longer in human shape, was quietly floating in the pool water, recovering extremely slowly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, in the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. In the past, Chen Hao's body would recover completely in less than a day, but this time, it took an entire 10 days. Chen Hao's broken bones, torn flesh, and shattered internal organs were finally restored. Chen Hao also finally regained control of his body. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The instant he regained control of his body, Chen Hao suddenly sat cross-legged. The dense spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the pool water immediately began to flow into his body at a speed 10 times, 100 times faster. Strands of brown light overflowed from his body. This color was obviously much deeper than that of a first-grade martial emperor. Not only that, there was also a pure and condensed spiritual energy surrounding Chen Hao's body. It slowly merged with the brown spiritual energy and gradually formed a bright protective shield. For the first time, it completely separated Chen Hao's body from the pool water. Phew! Sensing Chen Hao's condition, the mysterious existence whose heart was hanging in suspense finally let out a long sigh of relief. Thank goodness, thank goodness. If it was anyone else, they would have been finished. This brat's soul is actually so strong after fusing. It seems that I have to do something for him. His life is far more important than my own recovery. After he becomes strong, it won't be too late for me to recover. As long as he has a conscience, he shouldn't treat me unfairly, right? I am the spirit of the super treasure hunting sword. However, this world seems to be much more powerful and mysterious than I imagined. I'm afraid that only when he has the strength to activate that thing will he have something to rely on. For the time being, I can't let him take risks. Fighting steadily and surely is better than dying prematurely. Bang! The 11th day. When Chen Hao regained control of his body, he cultivated in the same place for an entire day and finally completely recovered. After surviving a great disaster, one was bound to have good fortune. What made Chen Hao excited was that, after almost losing his life, his martial cultivation had actually broken through 2 barriers in succession, stepping into the peak of 3rd-rank martial emperor. His mental power had also broken through several barriers in succession, rising to a level that was on par with other cultivators, the peak of 3rd-rank martial emperor. A powerful energy filled Chen Hao's body and surged violently. This astonishing breakthrough made Chen Hao unable to suppress the excitement of this soaring power after he finished refining it. In an instant, his 2 palms shot out countless palm shadows around his body. Immediately, the quiet pond water was like a landslide, continuously exploding, and the water surged violently. At this moment, Chen Hao had already withdrawn from the state of comprehending the tracks and lines of origin energy. He was completely relying on his protective aura to resist the terrifying water pressure. Fusing with the tracks and lines of origin energy was good. There was no loss of energy and he could do as he pleased. However, at this moment, Chen Hao was more inclined towards absolute power. Only with absolute power and true strength could he avoid the danger of being on the verge of death again. And only with absolute power could he deal with any sudden changes. After venting for a short period of time, Chen Hao felt refreshed. The protective aura around his body was extremely strong. The fusion of the origin energy and mental power of a 3rd-stage martial emperor and a 3rd-stage martial emperor had surpassed his own realm by many times. There was no need for Chen Hao to do anything, and he could easily resist the terrifying water pressure that had almost taken his life. However, at this moment, Chen Hao slightly frowned, because the fluctuation in his mind was actually coming from the direction he came from. Brackoback. This place is still 100 miles away from the core. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it will be. If this happens again, I'm afraid you'll die. Sensing Chen Hao's state, the existence in his mind had no choice but to communicate with Chen Hao again. How can you catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? Stop talking nonsense. Since I'm here, there's no reason to go back. Do you want me to waste 10 days? Moreover, I really like this kind of dangerous situation. Chen Hao immediately said firmly. Not only did his voice not have the slightest trace of fear, it was instead shining with strong confidence and excitement. Limit, surpassing one's own limit. Only a true life and death situation was the best way. Chen Hao was able to improve to such a level in 10 days. Who could do it? Chen Hao believed that if it wasn't for this life and death situation, he didn't know when he would be able to reach the third stage Martial Emperor and Martial Emperor realm. The Martial Emperor realm was different from the Martial Emperor realm. Every level required an extremely large amount of energy, especially Chen Hao's body, which was more special than ordinary people's. It required more energy. How could he improve so quickly just by relying on elixirs and cultivation? Moreover, Chen Hao also felt that after reaching the Martial Emperor realm, even he would need time to comprehend the barrier. Moreover, the barrier would definitely become more difficult as he progressed. Otherwise, his small cloud province wouldn't be so small. There were countless martial emperors, but only the patriarchs, guests and elders of the big clans were 9th stage martial emperors. There wouldn't only be a few martial emperors like Li Ran and Elder Shao. Alright, that's your own decision. I'm only the treasure-hunting sword spirit. I can only sense the direction of the treasure through the abnormality of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, I don't know the specific situation. It might be more dangerous later, so you have to be more careful. You're the treasure-hunting sword spirit. It's just, alright, I'm very weak. The treasure-hunting sword spirit immediately hid in the depths of Chen Hao's mind and began to sense and communicate with him again. The underground cave, which had become extremely spacious, now looked like a crystal palace. Huge stone pillars stood in it, like an underwater maze. There were several straight entrances. The original blood-red color of the moat had disappeared, and it became incomparably clear. There was no mud at the bottom of the water, only hard and flat rocks. Relying on the senses in his mind, after moving forward for more than 10 kilometers, a tightly sealed metal gate appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes. A plaque made of unknown material was hanging on the gate, and it was intact. The 4 big words carved in immortal characters shocked Chen Hao. Xianhuang's Secret Land. Xianhuang's Secret Land. Xianhuang's Secret Land. This must be the foundation of Xianhuang Ancient City. Xianhuang Ancient City is helpful in comprehending the 5-element spirit root, so it must be closely related to this secret land. Maybe the source of the 5-element spirit root is in this secret land. Chen Hao thought excitedly. At the same time, he activated all the elemental energy in his body and suddenly struck out with his palm. Bang! In the instant that Chen Hao's berserk power struck the metal door, a loud, muffled sound erupted. Suddenly, a dazzling icy blue light shone from the gate. Hiss! An incomparably swift and fierce force blotted out the sky and covered the earth as it slashed towards Chen Hao. P.S. Thank you for yesterday's 9 friends. Passionate love carrot. Dream is already. Chuan Liang Wuzi, Low-Key Little Devil, Shu Lin Fei, Yemo Ruoshi, El Bone Ash Bookworm, Shu Heng Ing Qian, and Purple Knight Emperor Shu for their support. Note: thank you very much for pointing out Wushan's mistake. Wushan actually left out Wuzong. They never thought of Wuzong until now. Now, Wuzong is a level between Martial Emperor and Warrior Sage. A master of a generation, establishing a sect. I'm not used to it, but I'm sorry. Chapter 82. Boom, boom, boom. Chen Hao was shocked. His eyes suddenly shrank, and his figure retreated quickly. His spiritual force and yuan qi were released violently, and he instantly shot out countless palms. Even so, the terrifying blue light that was like sword light still shattered Chen Hao's powerful protective qi inch by inch. Fortunately, this attack was only one wave. After the blue light disappeared, Chen Hao's body was drenched in cold sweat. He was incomparably shocked. If it weren't for the fact that Chen Hao had experienced the illusory realm, and that the illusory realm was an attack of countless sharp sword lights, just this one attack alone would have shattered him. What a powerful attack! Do you know what's going on? Chen Hao asked in his mind. He knew that although that guy was hiding now, he must be paying attention to him. I don't know, I don't understand these. You don't understand? Weren't you the one who helped me comprehend the true essence of Sword Dao during this period of time? I said, I'm just the sword spirit of treasure hunting. I can only be called the spirit of treasure hunting. I don't understand the true essence of Sword Dao, but it should be that thing. What is that thing? Chen Hao frowned and asked. I can only tell you that it's an ancient spiritual treasure. When you're strong enough, you'll naturally know. Don't ask. However, although I don't understand the mechanism of this door, I know that any mechanism has a way to open it, especially of this nature. Usually, the corresponding energy is used to activate the array. You should study it carefully. Since this is the mysterious yellow secret land and you have the 5 elements spiritual root, I'm afraid you must have a little understanding of the 5 elements. You just happen to have. Mechanisms were no stranger to Chen Hao in the past, and with his intelligence, it was not difficult for him at all. But in the past on Earth, arrays were only a legendary existence. Although Chen Hao had unearthed countless relics, because of the fall of the cultivators on Earth, the lack of spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and other reasons, there were no arrays in these relics. Even if there were, they had become useless arrays without the slightest power. Chen Hao only needed to think for a moment before he figured out the reason behind it. Whether it was yuan qi, spiritual force, or the 5 elements, yin and yang, and other forces. It was nothing more than energy of different attributes and qualities. The operation of any formation required the support of energy, and the power and effect it displayed was a way to use that energy. After figuring this out, Chen Hao carefully approached the door again and began to carefully ponder and try. Chen Hao, who was immersed in the mysteries of formations and mechanisms, did not know how terrifying what he was doing was to ordinary people. Even the ancient expert who left behind the ruins of the Xianhuang ancient city never thought that someone would approach the source of the 5 elements' spiritual roots in a way that completely went against his original intention. Just as the treasure-hunting sword spirit had guessed, after Chen Hao found the key mechanism of the door, he successfully used the mysterious ice qi to break open the door. Then, as he continuously approached the core, he activated countless mechanisms and formations. Needless to say, it was dangerous, but Chen Hao enjoyed it. It was as if he had encountered a difficult problem in the past, painful and happy at the same time, enjoying the joy and excitement of passing the level. Time flowed like water, and in the blink of an eye, an entire month had passed. In the evening, in the area near the east gate of the Xianhuang ancient city, 2 figures were hiding in a remote and dilapidated building complex. Their clothes were stained with blood and mud, and many of them were torn. Even their faces were dark, making it impossible to see what they looked like. One of the figures was sitting cross-legged, holding a large and thick sword with both hands. The sword was full of nicks, and it could be seen from this sword alone that this person must have experienced countless terrifying battles. His slightly trembling body was obviously still seriously injured and was recuperating. The other figure was seated cross-legged. Although her clothes were tattered, they were still unable to hide her graceful and exquisite figure. A faint and faintly discernible icy cold aura lingered around her body. Although her breathing was heavy, it was fine and deep. Her condition was clearly better than the person holding the sword. However, she was still injured. Huff, it was another night. No matter how unwilling the 2 were, they could not stop the curtain of night from falling. When the aura of the monster beasts quietly filled the air, the 2 of them exhaled and opened their eyes at the same time. Let's go. In another hour, the monster beasts will appear. We have escaped from Dongfang Jun, but if this goes on, I'm afraid we will die in the hands of the monster beasts. You can't hold on for much longer. Helian Wuzi's ethereal but worried voice sounded. Her little face was covered in dirt, and only her eyes were still clear, but there was a trace of extreme exhaustion. Boss asked us to wait here. We have to wait here, Mo Yui said weakly. His injuries were obviously very serious, but his voice was abnormally firm. Why are you as stubborn as a bull? Boss asked us to wait here, but he didn't ask us to die here. The others have all gone to the core area. Although the monster beasts here are the weakest, how can the two of us survive? The monster beasts tonight will definitely be more than yesterday, and stronger. How long can you last? Don't talk nonsense, follow me. It's still not too late. We will go to the area with the most people. So what if Dongfang Jun finds me? I don't believe that he dares to do anything to me in front of the other disciples. Let's go, Helian Wuzi said coldly. For an entire month, the two of them were only rank 1 martial monarchs. Although their battle prowess was much stronger than ordinary rank 1 martial monarchs under Chen Hao's special training, especially Helian Wuzi, who had comprehended water and ice, she was even more powerful. However, when faced with waves of attacks from monarch-level monstrous beasts, they were not able to withstand them, especially the monstrous beasts that appeared at night. They were getting stronger every night. At this moment, the two of them were already injured, and Mo Yui was even more seriously injured. But, if Boss comes out to find Rumble, before Mo Yui could finish his sentence, he and Helian Wuzi, who were still sitting cross-legged, jumped up in fright at the same time. No, to be exact, it was not that they jumped up, but that they jumped up from the shock. What made them incomparably shocked was that the entire ancient Xuanhuan city seemed to have started to tremble violently, as if there was an earthquake. A low and terrifying rumbling sound came from the depths of the ground, continuous and continuous. What's going on? When the two of them stabilized their bodies, this thought emerged in their minds. In the direction of the ancient Xuanhuan city, an incomparably bright light suddenly gushed out. In an instant, the entire ancient Xuanhuan city was bathed in bright light. The two of them looked at this scene in astonishment, and their minds raced. Before coming to the ancient Xuanhuan city, all the disciples were already clear about the situation of this trial. The ancient Xianhuang city contained the 5 elements' spiritual roots. It was a relic that the new disciples of the Royal New Show Hall had to come to every year. Many disciples were able to comprehend one of the 5 elements' spiritual roots and its derivative attributes. This was almost the standard for whether a cultivator could be promoted to martial saint. Emperor level, ancestor level, all things return to the origin, a master of a generation. As long as an expert reached the ancestor level, their origin power and mental power had been cultivated to the extreme. They could create the most suitable secret technique for themselves, establish a sect, and preach to the world. But for the body to reach the sage level, the first condition was to comprehend the 5 elements energy. Only then could they break through the shackles of the ancestor level and advance to the saint level. Saint-level experts, after comprehending all the 5 elements energy, would be able to operate the 5 elements and condense all kinds of powerful formations. They would have the unparalleled power to destroy heaven and earth, and the ability to clash with the martial god realm's yin-yang rotation. One could imagine the importance of comprehending the 5 elements energy. It was also because of this that Helian Wuzi was chosen by Feng Yuan. And now, the resplendent 7-colored light in the ancient Xianhuang city was the sign of the 5 elements' spiritual roots blooming. When the 7-colored light appeared, the spiritual roots appeared. Please collect, recommend, thank you. Chapter 83. According to the information they obtained, although Xianhuang Ancient City could comprehend the 5 elements, no one had been able to activate the 5 elements' spiritual roots in Xianhuang Ancient City. The spiritual roots that occupied the core of Xianhuang Ancient City, known as the Xianhuang Treasury, had never been opened before. and the scene before them was the legendary opening of the Xianhuang treasury. How could Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui not be shocked? Could it be that someone had opened the Xianhuang ancient city's treasury? Quick! Let's go! This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, charge. In an instant, not only Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, all the new disciples training in Xianhuang ancient city crazily started to approach the core of the ancient city. Everyone knew what the opening of the Xianhuang treasury meant. Even if they couldn't obtain the 5 elements spiritual roots, as long as they entered the core area of the treasury, they would naturally obtain endless benefits. Even if others ate the meat and they ate the soup, it would still be a huge harvest. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, streams of light flashed as each of them raised their speed to the limit. The experts training in the core area, such as the Fierce Sun Hall's Zhao Yunfei, the Cold Moon Hall's Dongfang Jun, the Cold Star Hall's Bailey family's Rank 9 Martial King Bailey Yen, and the Lansong province's Zhuge Qingyun, all of them were abnormally excited as they immediately rushed over. What did the opening of the Xianhuang treasury mean? This was an ancient treasury. More importantly, there were 5 types of spiritual roots: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Every spiritual root contained its basic attribute and derivative attribute. This was a peerless inheritance. As long as one obtained one of them, it meant that one could comprehend the energy derived from that attribute. Moreover, it would be the origin energy, the pinnacle of the 5 elements. Compared to what Chen Hao and Helian Wuzi comprehended in the Origin Spirit Cave and the Heavenly Origin Cave, it was purer and stronger. As for these experts, they were the most outstanding of all the disciples participating in the trial. The 3 great palaces had a total of 1 rank 1 martial emperor and 3 rank 9 martial emperors. Even if the strongest Zhao Yunfei managed to snatch 2, Dongfang Jun, Bailey Yen and Zhuge Qingyun would be able to snatch 1 each. How could they not be excited? Resplendent rainbow-colored lights filled the world like a dream. As all the disciples madly converged towards the core of Xianhuang ancient city, the aura of the nocturnal monster beasts also became more and more intense. As if they had been enticed by the opening of the mysterious yellow treasure vault, terrifying beastly roars resounded between heaven and earth. The already violently shaking ancient city was suddenly filled with dust and smoke. Bang! 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 The enormous and terrifying demon beasts actually no longer fought with the humans. Instead, they similarly chose to gather at the core of the ancient city. 7 colors were born, and the spirit root appeared. The disciples of the new show hall were not the only ones who went crazy. The demonic beasts also went crazy. Humans and beasts had their own paths. This was especially true for demonic beasts that were able to advance to the 5th level, which was the Emperor realm. Although they were not human, they were still living creatures that cultivated. They all possessed the intelligence of humans. The monster beasts that lived in the ruins of the Xianhuang ancient city were naturally aware of the value of the Xianhuang treasure vault. Who would give up? Moreover, everyone knew that once the mysterious yellow treasure vault and the 5 elemental spiritual roots were divided, the mysterious yellow ancient city's ruins would completely disappear. Because the foundation that supported and protected the existence of the mysterious yellow ancient city was the 5 elemental spiritual roots in the mysterious yellow treasure vault. Once the spiritual roots disappeared, the ancient ruins would lose its protection and naturally dissipate with the wind, turning into dust. The 7-colored light shrouded heaven and earth. The momentum was terrifying, and the rumbling tremors were still continuing. Everyone desperately increased their speed to the limit. The cultivators who were originally in the core area of the ancient city had already arrived at the center of the ancient city. The huge sealed palace that no one had ever set foot in before. At this moment, numerous figures and countless demonic beasts stood in front of the 4 gates of the palace. They each formed a camp, but there was no fighting. There was only a burning gaze. They were waiting for the 7-colored light that shrouded the entire palace to disappear. Once the light disappeared, the seal of the palace would be lifted, and the mysterious yellow treasure vault would be opened. The core palace, or rather, the mysterious yellow treasure vault, had a total of 5 gates. The east, west, south, and north corresponded to wood, metal, fire, and water. The central palace was for earth, and the earth gate was at the core above the palace. At this moment, under the resplendent seven-colored light, no one was able to reach the earth gate. The four gates were where all the humans and demonic beasts gathered. Zhao Yunfei, Dongfang Jun, Bailey Yen, and Zhuge Qingyun had tacitly chosen one of the gates and stood at the very front of the gates. Moreover, no one dared to compete with them, especially Zhao Yunfei, who was a rank 1 martial emperor, from the west gate. His tall and mighty figure emitted a frightening oppressive might. He wore a long gown and stood with his hands behind his back. His long hair fluttered without wind, and with a slight sweep of his sharp gaze, those who wanted to approach him would all stop their steps. As for Dongfang Jun, who was also standing proudly at the south gate, as well as the 3 people from the Dongfang family, they all had arrogant expressions on their faces as they slowly swept their gazes across the crowd. "All of you watch carefully." Dongfang Jun lowered his voice and said to the 3 people beside him, "Yes, boss. This time, they'll definitely appear." "That's not certain. Motherfucker, that coward is actually hiding somewhere. If he knows that we're here, perhaps he won't come out." "How could that be? The opening of the Xianhuang treasure vault is a great opportunity. I don't believe that they'll be able to endure it. Let's just wait." Dongfang Jun and the others spoke on the ground. In an entire month's time, they had used their fastest speed to rush to the Xianhuang ancient city and waited at the north gate for Chen Hao and the others. However, they didn't see them. After asking several disciples who entered from the east gate, they found out that Chen Hao and the others had used a strange method to enter the city. However, even after an entire month, they still hadn't found Chen Hao and the others. How could they not be depressed? Especially the 2 who had their throats slit by Chen Hao, they were gnashing their teeth in anger. The resplendent 7-colored light didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. After an entire hour, it still didn't weaken in the slightest. At this moment, almost all the cultivators and demonic beasts were surrounding the Xianhuang treasure vault. All of them were impatient. As for Dongfang Jun and the others who were destined to be the first to enter the treasure vault, they anxiously waited while looking for Chen Hao and the others. However, they found nothing. After all, there were 4 gates. It wasn't certain which gate Chen Hao and the others went to, and even if they went to the other 3 gates, they wouldn't be able to see them. It was easy to find them at this moment, but the Xianhuang treasure vault was obviously far more important than Chen Hao and the others. Who knew when the treasure vault would open? This was a race against time, and Dongfang Jun didn't want to delay. Half an hour later, 2 figures, who were more miserable than the rest of the crowd, arrived at the east gate. Their faces were black and dirty, their hair was messy, and their clothes were tattered. It was obvious that their injuries were not light, especially one of them. Although one of the figures looked like a little beggar, her graceful and exquisite figure could still be vaguely seen. Her pair of cold eyes were still beautiful. "Junior sister Xiao?" A surprised and pleasantly surprised voice suddenly sounded. "P.S. Please add it to your collection and recommend it. If you haven't added it yet, please add it to your collection." Chapter 84. The 9th grade martial monarch Zhuge Qingyun was currently enjoying the glory and status brought by absolute strength. The handsome and imposing Zhuge Qingyun stood at the front of the east gate of the black-yellow treasury with his hands behind his back. He used his sharp gaze to block the crowd that wanted to approach. The only ones that could stand beside him were the 12 disciples from the Lansong province who had followed him into the Cold Star Palace. He was paying attention to every figure in the crowd, especially the ones that had just arrived, because he was also looking for the beautiful figure that had moved his heart. Although she didn't follow him to the Cold Star Palace, he would still encounter her when the 3 palaces were training together. Unfortunately, he didn't find her in this 1 month. However, he didn't give up, especially since the black-yellow treasury was about to open. He believed that Chen Hao and the other 2 would definitely come. If they could come to the east gate, that would naturally be the best. When Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui's figures appeared in his eyes, he slightly frowned. Especially when he saw the pair of beautiful and cold eyes, He cried out in shock. Quick, come to senior brother. How did you end up like this? Zhuge Qingyun asked with concern. He didn't care about the gazes of the surrounding crowd. Little Mo? I already told you to follow senior brother into the Cold Star Palace, but you didn't listen. Little Wu, are your injuries serious? Serves them right, they asked for it. Senior brother Qingyun is so good to her. Look at her, isn't she just a little beautiful? How is she worthy of senior brother Qingyun? That's right. When Zhuge Qingyun actually went straight for Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui, the two female disciples who also came from the Lansong province revealed jealousy in their words as they spoke in a low voice. It's fine, thank you. Helian Wuzi said. She and Mo Yui were still recognized by Zhuge Qingyun in this state, which was out of their expectations. Although Helian Wuzi knew that Zhuge Qingyun had feelings for her, she couldn't say anything about it. After all, Zhuge Qingyun wasn't like Dongfang Jun who forced and threatened her. Where's Chen Hao? Why isn't he with you? After entering the city, he separated from us to train. Helian Wuzi casually said. Even she and Mo Yui didn't understand what Chen Hao was going to do. He only knew that Chen Hao had discovered something unusual. This kid is too outrageous. Zhuge Qingyun lightly frowned as he spoke. He knew very well that the reason Helian Wuzi didn't choose the Cold Star Hall was because of Chen Hao, and he was naturally displeased in his heart. All right, junior sister Xiaowu, little Mo, the dark yellow treasure vault is about to open. Both of you follow by my side. With me here, no one will dare to fight for the East Gate with you. No need. Let's go find boss. Before Helian Wuzi could speak, Mo Yui said with a cold expression. Glancing at Helian Wuzi, she took the lead and turned to walk towards the other door. Helian Wuzi waved her hand at Zhuge Qingyun and followed Mo Yui without any hesitation. Leaving behind an embarrassed Zhuge Qingyun, boss? Chen Hao actually became their leader? Zhuge Qingyun's brows were tightly locked as he looked at the back view of the two of them leaving without any hesitation. He didn't feel good in his heart. He really didn't understand what was wrong with him. Although Chen Hao's talent was astonishing, was he bad? Especially now, his strength was much stronger than Chen Hao. Furthermore, Chen Hao was only 13 years old. Although he had a steadiness and maturity that surpassed his peers, why did Mo Yui and Helian Wuzi place such a little brat as their center? Little Mo, isn't it good to follow them? He's not bad. Not good. He has thoughts about you and has opinions about boss. Mo Yui said directly. After a slight pause, he looked at Helian Wuzi and continued, I can feel that the one you like is boss. Therefore, we can't accept his kindness. What nonsense are you talking about? Helian Wuzi's beautiful eyes suddenly glared as she spoke angrily. Her little face felt hot. Fortunately, her face was full of stains. Otherwise, who knew how red it would be? He's a bastard, a 13-year-old brat. How can I like him? Mo Yui grinned, which was a rare sight. He glanced at Helian Wuzi and directly changed the topic. Could boss be here? Helian Wuzi glared fiercely at Mo Yui, but after a moment, she put away the intention to debate and said, No. If he comes out, he will definitely come to us. He should still be at the bottom of the river. Then you walk behind me. Let's hurry to the other gates and don't meet Dongfang Jun and the others. Mo Yui said. This seven-colored light seems to contain a magical power. I feel that my injuries are recovering faster. What about you? Helian Wuzi asked. This should be the power of the 5 elements' spiritual roots. Let's go, let's find an entrance and recover before the treasury opens. An hour later, the resplendent rainbow-colored radiance finally began to slowly weaken. The crowd and beasts that had long since become impatient instantly became restless. They all approached the 4 gates, and even Zhao Yunfei and the other experts were unable to completely stop them. The tremors and roars from the ground also gradually subsided as the 7-colored light weakened. Rumble. When the 7-colored light that shrouded the entire sealed palace completely dissipated, the closed gates suddenly rumbled open to both sides. It's opened, let's go. Boom boom boom, whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the figures of both humans and beasts seemed to have gone crazy. In an instant, Yuan power erupted violently. Countless figures mustered all their strength and transformed into streaks of flowing light that swiftly charged into the treasury. Zhao Yunfei, Dongfang Jun and the other masters immediately turned into streams of flowing light and rushed directly to the core of the palace. Although they wanted very much to take all the treasures in the entire palace, it was obviously impossible. Therefore, they could only aim for the most important 5 elements' spiritual roots. As for the disciples with weaker cultivations, the moment they entered the treasury, they scattered in all directions. They wanted the meat, but they were destined to not be able to obtain it. Therefore, searching for other treasures and spiritual herbs was the most practical choice. Even Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui had the same idea. No way? The moment they entered the treasury, everyone was shocked. From the outside, this sealed palace was only a giant palace that was 1 kilometer long and wide. But after entering, it was like a different world. Looking up, it was gray and hazy. They couldn't see the top at a glance. And inside the palace, there were countless small palaces, which were unimaginably huge. It was simply like a huge city. How was this possible? How did it become like this? Most of the people were naturally shocked. They couldn't imagine how a small palace could become such a huge city. But the disciples of the 3 major families of the Jinyuan kingdom, Zhao family, Dongfang family, and Bailey family, became abnormally excited. Space law. The palace of this black-yellow treasure vault actually contained the space law that only the martial gods who had transcended the 5 elements and jumped out of yin and yang could condense. Turning a foot into the horizon, condensing a square inch into heaven and earth. What did this mean? It meant that the value of this black-yellow treasure vault was far beyond their estimation. It meant that they would gain even more. No one knew that in the underground palace under the black-yellow treasure vault, a figure was sitting cross-legged. His entire body was shrouded in an extremely thick 7-colored light. When the black-yellow treasure vault opened and the 7-colored light disappeared, this figure was still shrouded in a thick 7-colored light. No one would have thought that this figure was the source of the 7-colored light. It was only at this time that the 7-colored light that seemed to be emitted from his body slowly weakened and dissipated. After a few minutes later than the outside world, the moment the 7-colored light completely disappeared, the space around him suddenly distorted. Then, his figure disappeared without a trace. Please recommend. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.